Yeah, so once again, I mean, I'll say Assalamu alaikum, coach. It's a pleasure to have you on here. For those who follow me, they may or may not know that in about 2015, I first came across your work. I even remember I was like downstairs that night, going through YouTube, trying to find some info on the Philly shell, and I came across Ummah Fight Camp. And I thought, who is this? Who is this person? Let me read up about him.
This
watch his videos,
right?
Watch his videos, and I started one, and I probably was there for 2 or 3 hours watching one video after another of yours, and I really enjoyed it, and I'll be subscribed ever since to your channels. I've only subscribed to a handful of channels, and yours is one of them. So I always kept up to date what you're saying, because what I find most impressive about you is your fighting philosophy. A lot of people can say, this is how you do this move, I can teach this, I can teach that. But not many people go over the mental side of fighting. And I think that's missing now. Whereas one of your strengths is that you're really good at the mental side of fighting. Because fighting, the reality of violence, as you said before, it's scary. It can be scary. So
it is.
I'm a boxing coach. I've come across people who they may look great in the ring, but when it comes to actual fight, then the nerves, adrenaline dump, things can happen under the bright lights. It's different. So that's definitely something I want to touch upon as well. So again, so now fast forward 8 years to have you, speaking to me, be in front of you, interviewing. It's a huge honor for me. I'm really happy that you accepted the offer as well. So what I want to start with first is just to talk about yourself and your fighting background, because viewers say they won't know what your start is. I want to add in that I understand you trained as well when you're younger in the same gym as Floyd Mayweather Sr. So that gives you some insight as to how he trained, whether his coaching has his knowledge or skills changed in those years. So if you want to just take the lead now and let the viewers know what was your background in fighting, how long it's been, and the various martial arts that you studied as well and trained under.
Okay. Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. The first thing I want to say, full disclosure, is I'm not very brave. I want to say that I'm not a very brave person. I come across on my videos as a tough guy, but I was forced into training. And the reason is because is that me or is that you? That's okay, that sound coming across?
Yeah, I think that's someone at my front door. Let's ignore that.
Okay. My mother, this is a sort of an aside, but it will kind of bring people up to how I got started. My mother graduated high school at 16. So I was brought up around books. All I ever wanted to be was a philosophy professor. When I was 9 years old, I won a spelling bee, and it was actually 2 parts. It was a spelling bee, and then it was a contest where they would give you a word and you had to put it in a sentence. I returned home with my medal, and I was showing people who I thought were my friends my medal, and they jumped me.
Really?
Yeah, they jumped me. And I had one younger sister at the time. My only brother's 18 years older than me who wasn't living with us. So I go screaming upstairs, telling my mother we have to move, and we lived in a housing project. My brother came down and said, listen, mommy doesn't have money to move. You're just gonna have to learn to defend yourself. So he got me 2 pairs of boxing gloves. At that time, it was in the winter. Following summer, he started taking me around the parks. And the crazy thing is, the first people he had me box were the people who jumped me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So now I'm like, oh my God. I didn't know what trauma was, my friend. But now when I look back, I was traumatized. I didn't know what to do. Everything changed for me because I want to get everything in. Everything changed for me when someone said something about my mother. I put my head down, no technique, put my head down, threw a hard right hand. I waited for the response. I just knew he was going to kill me then, right? So I had my hand sort of like this. I looked up and his nose was bleeding. And I said, whoa, wait a minute, Sayf. You may have something here. Maybe you have some punching power. The next day, went to school, my whole life changed. My whole life changed. From 10 years old now, 10 years old now, my whole life changed. People started speaking to me, and I realized, getting into the fighting philosophy, I realized that even though I wasn't violent, being able to use it when needed will make my life a lot easier. And that's when I started to embrace, even though I didn't like it, like George St. Pierre said many years ago, even though I didn't like fighting, I knew at some point I needed to use it in order to make the most of my life, considering where I was born and raised. So I started boxing. And ironically enough, I want you to have be able to ask all your questions. Ironically enough, even though I started being taken around the parks with boxing gloves, later on, people would challenge me in school, right? We didn't have gloves. So my legacy actually is not boxing gloves. Boxing with gloves is bare knuckle.
Okay.
You see, that's really what my legacy is. Actually bare knuckle boxing. Because once these 10, 11, and 12-year-old kids started to want to challenge me, obviously we only had our fists. So I had to immediately, from 11 to 12 to 13, take boxing and apply it to the art of bare knuckle, which now is getting very popular. But that's really my legacy. It's really bare knuckle more than glove boxing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the boxing side, though, I saw a video of yours on YouTube where you discussed you were boxing in the gym, and Floyd Mayweather Sr. used to frequent that gym. So tell us more about that.
Yes. Okay. Now I'm going to mention some names that only older boxing fans may know, or younger fans may know if they're really students of boxing. I'm 19 years old. I'm at the power. And I want to say the first time I walked into my regulation boxing gym, I was 16. From 9 to 16, I'm boxing in the streets. I'm walking around with boxing gloves, literally walking around with 2 pairs of boxing gloves and taking it on anyone. Grown men didn't matter. So the first time I get into a regulation boxing gym, I'm actually 16. So I'm 18 years old, remember like it was yesterday. I was full of myself because I had the matching headgear, the matching cup, the matching gloves. They were burgundy and gray, right? So I have my back to the door, and a gentleman by the name of Johnny George, he says, Daryl, because my given name is Daryl. He said, Daryl, Floyd Mayweather Sr.'s here. So I said, okay. Now he had lost to Sugar Ray Leonard. Okay. So for me, I'm young, I'm full of myself. I'm not thinking much of it because, hey, man, Sugar Ray Leonard cleans your clock. So I'm not thinking, it's wrong, but that's how I was thinking at the time. So I keep my back to him and I start sparring. When I finished, I think I might have went 4 rounds. And he says, hey, you got to make out, he always spoke the same way. Always. You had to kind of figure out what he was saying by his facial expressions. And he was talking about the way I use the ropes in order to stall for time when I was tired and things of that nature. And when I got out of the ring, he started showing me some things and he asked me where I learned it. Here's the kicker. I'd never called it the Philly shell, but where I learned that particular style was from a man by the name of Saul Mamby.
Yes, I've heard of Saul Mamby.
Okay.
He passed away just a few years ago, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
yes, sir. Saul Mamby from in the Times Square gym in New York City. And he's the one, that he would travel the world. I mean, the guy was champion, I think, for a brief moment, but he was very, very slick. So when I told Floyd where I learned it, he says, oh, yeah, Saul Mamby. And that's really where I learned it from. I didn't know the term Philly shell until maybe 10 years ago. Surprisingly, about 10 years ago, when I asked someone who had taught me bare knuckle boxing where the term came from. And that's one thing. Yeah, go ahead.
And this is back in the late 1970s.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. when I saw Floyd. Now, I asked him what he was doing there. He said he was there to see his son. Okay, son is 2 years old at the time. Well, we know who that was, right? I said, "Oh, you got a son? Well, right. Is he gonna be a boxer? Yeah, you better be a boxer." Right? Who knew? Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that it was a good experience. But he really, in all honesty, he really did more complimenting me than actually teaching me anything. He really did more complimenting me because he said it was a lost art. I was using the rope. I was exhausted. I was stalling for time. And I don't think he saw that amongst many 18-year-olds, young guys coming up. So he was very glad. You can see how happy he was to see this kind of art outside of Michigan being used. So yeah,
So,
that was nice.
so did you get a chance to see though Mayweather Sr. teaching? Was he actually there teaching or just viewing most of the time?
No,
Watching?
this man, he loved boxing so much. I think he went to see where little Floyd was living with his mother was about 2 blocks away from the police athletic league gym. And I think what he did was he just said, he wanted to see, was there a gym anywhere? And they said, oh, we're down the street. And him, a lover of boxing, just figured he would come in there and see what was going on. Yeah, he was just glad to share his experience. He just wanted to be around boxing. Later on, after reading about his life a little bit and learning about his life, it wasn't more than maybe 6 months later that he went to prison.
Okay.
Yeah, so I get the feeling now that he was there to kind of get things straightened out before he went away, which I didn't know at that particular time.
Yeah. Okay, so that leads me nicely onto the next question regarding the Philly shell, the Michigan shoulder roll, Detroit.
Now you're really gonna get me in trouble. But
so this is how I came across you, and
okay.
And there's things about the Philly shell which I haven't heard anywhere else. So clearly you've got some knowledge going back 30, 40 years, which not many of us know about. So do you see differences between the Philly shell, Michigan shoulder roll? Are they the same, and just minor nuances? What's your take on? Because I think nowadays Philly shell gets called more of a defensive fighting system, when in reality it's not. The only reason it's called defensive is because people say Floyd Mayweather, if we use Mayweather with upper divisions, he had to be more defensive against generally bigger men. But in reality, the first person I heard say Philly shell was actually more attacking was yourself in one of your videos. You said Philly shell is not a defensive stance. It's designed to be more attacking. So what are the differences between? I say the Philly shell is separate to the shoulder roll of Michigan defense. Well, what's your opinion on this? What's the differences between Philly shell and Michigan?
Okay. First, the shoulder roll is a boxing tactic. It's a boxing tactic that is not particular to the Philly shell. Okay, you see the shoulder roll from the Philly shell because it's easier. Can you see? You can see me, right?
Yeah.
Can you see my top?
Yeah.
Okay, it's easier to collapse your arm into a shoulder roll from a low guard. So it's become synonymous with the Philly shell. But actually, if my hands are here and I parry a jab and I can't slip the cross, so I have to have like a flinch response, because that's what the shoulder roll is. It's a flinch response that is made more elegant. Okay, so if you're trying to get away from a punch, you may go like this. Well, all the shoulder roll is a more elegant flinch response. So if my hand is here and I parry the jab and I can't slip the cross or duck the cross or bob and weave under the cross, then I'll just fold my arm under and then return back. You see? But this, you can say, is not the Philly shell. So ironically, one of the best shoulder rolls, but it was kind of coarse, but one of the best shoulder rolls was done by Roberto Duran. If someone takes Roberto, you see what I mean? If someone takes Roberto, what's that?
The rubbernecking when a punch would come in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A brutal shoulder roll. He would shoulder roll with the uppercut, shoulder roll with the cross, right? But you don't think of him, obviously he didn't do the Philly chow. See, so the shoulder roll is a tactic that actually falls in with slipping, bobbing, weaving, parrying, and blocking. It's just synonymous with the Philly shell because obviously from a low guard, it's easier to go into it. So when people say shoulder roll, I think they do a disservice to the artistry of the Philly shell. And anything that's not a shoulder roll, you'll find that the Floyd fan, I'm sorry, this is not this brother talking, this is me, Sayf Carman talking, right? The Floyd fan, if you're not doing a shoulder roll, they assume that you're not doing the Philly shell. When actually the Philly shell includes also folding up under punches. It also includes a cross arm block. It also includes a cross arm defense. It includes so many things other than the shoulder roll. So that's just a tactic. And it's a tactic that you can use no matter where your hands are, because all you're doing is collapsing your arm and then returning back to position. That's all it is. The other thing with the Philly shell, oh, I forget, because I'm an old man, I may forget. The Philly shell's position is not designed to keep you from getting hit on the head. It's designed to keep you from getting hit on the chin. Okay? Now, I always like to give empirical evidence, what we call receipts, right? Floyd Mayweather's fighting what I think is his masterpiece. He's fighting, now if I talk too much, interrupt me, all right? He's fighting his masterpiece, which I think is Shane Mosley. He's out on his feet in the second round against Shane Mosley. His fans don't want to fade, don't really want that. That's a part of his history they don't want to talk about. But what does he do? Does he stay in the Philly shell? No. He raises his hands up like this. Why does he raise his hand up like that? Because Floyd Mayweather Jr. is a genius, taught by a genius. He knows that if he gets hit on top of his head one more time, it's curtains. And the Philly shell is designed to keep you from getting hit in the chin, not the top of the head. So he raises his arms up until a cobweb's clear. And then the rest is history. He ends up beating him, walking him down. Okay. The second one on this issue is we look at James Toney, who I think is the modern master of the Philly shell. The true Philly shell is the modern master of it. He's fighting Michael Nunn. He tries the same thing with Michael Nunn he tries with everyone else. How does he knock Michael Nunn out? He has to walk him down. He has to walk him down under fire that the Philly shell is just not going to, it's not going to be secure enough for him. So what does he do? Raises both hands up. You see, why? Because a Philly shell does not protect the top of your head, it protects your chin. So these are the kind of things that people need to understand too. Someone gets hit on top of the head, okay? That's a miss. That's a miss when you're boxing. That's considered a miss, right? Getting hit here, the jawline, the face. If you're trying to hit me, if I'm trying to hit you in the nose and you slip like this and I hit you on top of the head, anybody who knows what they're looking at says you have a good defense. Why? Because my aim was for your nose. You see? And you offered your cranium instead because you couldn't get completely under that particular blow. And that's the Philly shell. The Philly shell is to keep you from is to help you guard your chin, protect your chin, not your head. Whenever that's not possible, you see the greatest Philly shell fighters put their hands up. Okay. I also want to say something else too. I want viewers to look at amateur boxing. When they look at the amateur boxing, they see that USA boxing was very conservative. More conservative than Cuban boxing, more conservative than the former Soviet Union program. Because of that, Floyd Mayweather spent most of his amateur career boxing with his hands up because they're so conservative. And then he would have these, he would start, because of who his father was and how he trained, eventually he would go back into the Philly shell. He boxed just like Roy Jones. Most American boxers that we see, even Muhammad Ali, formerly Cassius Clay, they had their hands up because USA boxing is so conservative. So when people are looking at the Philly shell, they need to understand what came first. What came first, Aki, was fundamentals. My big problem with people, you didn't ask me this, but my big problem with a lot of trainers is they are giving people the Philly shell style, a low guard style, before they learn the fundamentals.
Mm.
You see? And this is why the ratio to good fighters to people using the Philly shell is skewed, isn't it? Look how many fighters fight with their arms down. Look how many are champions. Because trainers are selling out. They're fans of a style and not fans of boxing. And all trainers owe it to their students and to their clients to be fans of boxing and not to a style.
It's very interesting you touched upon that point, because would you consider yourself more old school boxing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one of the coaches I speak to, his name is Billy Padden. So he trained under the same coach as Sonny Liston, Willie Reddish. So he is more Philly shell as well. He said exactly what you did. He said the Philly shell, when we start, we do not fight with the lead hand low. We fight with the lead hand high.
Absolutely.
Exactly echoed what you said. And then once you've got more experience, a lot more experience, that doesn't mean like a handful of fights, a ton of experience, 20, 30, 40 fights, then by all means, you're good enough to start manipulating and your movement of the lead hand, bring it down a little bit. But at the start, exactly what you say, the fundamentals, Philly shell, he was a Philly shell fighter, learned the Philly shell system as well, lead hand high, exactly what you said. So it's interesting that both the old school boxing heads have said that lead hand should be high. Whereas, as you say, a lot of the coaches now, they're watching the old school style, lead hand low, and started teaching that from scratch. So it's quite interesting to touch upon that point. It's very interesting.
Before you go on, I don't know you, but I think you're an ethical person. What is your first obligation? Your first obligation when somebody walks into your gym is to teach them how to protect themselves.
Mm.
When you love the people and you have a responsibility and you feel this responsibility to people you're training, you get upset when they get hit, okay? The best way to teach them to defend themselves is to teach them how to defend themselves with their hands up first.
Yeah.
You know, and then when do you allow them to start to lower their hands or start to modify their style? When you see, you're watching, say you're a coach, right? Just giving you some advice, right? You watch a guy, drops his hands. You don't tell him immediately put his hands up. See if he can defend himself from that position. Not throw punches from that position, defend himself from that position. If he can defend himself from that position, let him go. Until he can't defend himself, then you say, okay, now listen to me. That's the whole thing. The first thing, anybody can punch people. You will see videos of me, like the video I sent you, people trying to take my head off. One of them's 300 some pounds. He has 100 pounds on me almost, right? He's trying to take my head off. I didn't punch back because what's more important to me is my defense. So that particular person that was talking to you like that, he knows the first obligation somebody walks into your gym is not to teach them offense, it's to teach them defense. Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to keep them in the fight. That's what's going to help them to weather the storm. Okay?
Definitely. Totally, fully agree with you there. So what about, you mentioned the bare knuckle side of things. Do these fighting styles, the Philly shell, do these translate onto the street?
The Philly shell.
Because you mentioned the gym warriors, for example, they would use the Philly shell in the ring when these amateur fighters didn't want to turn pro for whatever reason. They use to conserve energy. So is this a tactic that you, in your experience, you've seen that people use on the street at all? What is that? Is also, in your opinion, what is best for the street? Which fighting art is best for the street?
You know, the Philly shell can be used in the street. The problem is that, and it's going to get a little graphic. The Philly shell, because it doesn't protect your cranium, if you don't get a guy out of there relatively quickly, you're going to withstand enough punishment on your cranium, it can be cut. it can be cut open. Because understand that you are walking into someone who has no pads on, hitting you probably with the first 2 knuckles, okay? And your head is exposed. You see? Now, some people might say, okay, well, it's defensive. But if you're bare knuckle boxing or you're fighting in the street, the first thing you want to do is find a way to get that person out of there. You want to separate that person from their conscience, okay? From their consciousness. And you can't do that in constant retreat, which means which way do you have to go? That way. And if you're going that way under fire and someone is punching you with bare knuckle, bone against bone, okay, the Philly shell for me would not be the style I would choose. It wouldn't be the style I would choose.
So if we were, so it's always an age-old argument. What works best for the street? I know you've done martial arts as well. You've done karate as well, was it? You've done some karate. So
yeah,
what would you say then is the best for the street? What sort of defense system or attacking system? What would you suggest or recommend? People always say boxing versus martial arts, for example. But what do you think is the best for someone to learn self-defense for any situation, whether it's in the ring and outside as well?
Well, more than anything else, I would say that's my thing. And I this boxing, boxing has a great delivery system, meaning the footwork. Okay, you want to be able to get in and get out. You want to be able to change direction very fast, and there is no martial art better at that than boxing. So boxing footwork, any combative system needs to use boxing footwork. The delivery of punches, boxing is best. But what you need to know if it's self-defense, and I don't want to go too deep into self-defense because if that's what I do, and it can get really expanded.
Yeah, but I suppose most people who take up a fighting combat sport are not going to compete competitively. They're really doing it for their own self-defense if the situation ever occurs outside of the ring. So even though this may sound like someone may say, well, why are you asking this question in a street fight? No, it's a boxing conversation.
No, it's a good question.
But most people do martial arts not because they're going to fight competitively, in a tournament, amateur boxing, pro boxing. It's for self-defense outside of the ring if the situation ever occurs. So again, what is your opinion?
I know.
Yeah. So
I'm glad that you gave me a little time because now my thoughts have been collected. Okay, so here we go. When we talk about self-defense, you're in the UK now?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's use that as an example. We're talking about a lot of blade work. Okay. Right or wrong, we're talking about a lot of blade work. It's hard to get a gun in the UK, but people cut each other. My question for people saying all you need is boxing, and I love boxing. It saved me from a life of just being tormented. If boxing was a person, I could never repay him or her. But facts are facts, right? How are you going to Philly shell a razor? How are you going to, if someone has a knife on you, are you going to do this? Are you going to use a peekaboo?
I'm running.
It's not, you can't look and say, okay, for people say, all you need is boxing for self-defense. I would ask them to define self-defense. Because you're talking about weapons. You're also talking about multiple opponents. So are you going to Philly shell with this one? Understand if there's 2 people coming after me, it's my goal to either get away, right? Realistically, to get away and fight another day or don't fight at all, right? Just don't show up in the same place again, right? Or if I have to fight, to dispatch each individual as quickly as possible. You can't do that trying to be stylish. I'm not going to do my best imitation of Floyd Mayweather and I have 2 people trying to attack me. You see? So when people talk about all you need is boxing for self-defense, I would say you need the footwork, clearly, in and out, change directions quickly. You need the punching because the punching, the snapping of boxing punches, I think in some ways are superior to other martial arts. But if you're not grappling, if you have any issue with, here we go, if you have any issue with biting someone's ear off, right? You're not really talking about self-defense. You're talking about a gentlemanly agreement to fight according to certain rules. You see? So you have to take a little from boxing that works in the street and be honest about it. Because what many people do, even with karate, what many people do is they shape the street to fit their art instead of shaping their art to fit the reality of the streets. See? And I mean, you can do that, but you wouldn't tell anyone you love that that's the best thing to do. Because once things happen, you can lose your life. Karate had intent. When a real karate fighter is trying to fight you, look at Elwin Hall you have in the UK. Says my internet is not stable.
Yeah, it sort of froze for about 10, 15 seconds. We're back on now.
Okay. You have Elwin Hall, you have Frank Brennan. I will say about UK karate, you guys were authentic long after the United States went with pads and the jumping around and, playing a game of tag, which is why in the UK, look at some of the gangsters. Not promoting gangsterism, but look at gangsters, the bouncers. Many of them, their foundation is karate. It's not Brazilian jiu-jitsu or something like that.
Yeah, one of the
but boxing books. For stuff. Yeah.
I think one of books I read, I know you've mentioned them on your site as well, was Jeff Thompson, Wash My Bag. So his base was karate as well. And he was a bouncer that became well known. Yeah,
man. And I always say, you guys are my peers. My peers are really not here. My peers are in the UK. They're you guys are my brothers, because you can't afford. There's so much hand to hand. And then there's this gentlemanly way of dealing with things. You still have bare knuckle, right? You had bare knuckle before it became popular in the UK, right? So you guys are more my peers than the people here. Some of the best comments I get on my channel, my YouTube channel, come from you guys. But you just have to be realistic about stuff. Yeah, sure.
Very interesting. So differences in striking then between boxing and mixed martial arts. Because you've got experience of both. So, how do you see the main differences here? Because as you mentioned, boxing delivery system is second to none. But if we were comparing the two and taking it outside of the ring, how do those what's the difference between teaching a boxing style of punching as opposed to a way of punching for mixed martial arts, where you're counting for legs as well? It's not just fists.
I think you hit on it. Boxing, the punches set up other punches. In mixed martial arts, the punches may set up a takedown, may set up a kick, entry into a clinch, an elbow. If we're talking about liftway, which is a way of fighting, bare knuckle fighting in Burma or Myanmar, right? They have headbutts. Yeah, so now their punches were set up. It's brutal, right? Punches would set up headbutts. Now, this is why if you have an MMA fighter, he's not going to beat a good boxer. If he's not grappling, he's not kicking. It's not going to happen. I mean, people love hearing about, these two guys are fighting. I would say I don't even watch them. I don't watch any of those fights live because an MMA fighter is not going to beat a good boxer. And a good boxer is not going to beat a good MMA fighter. It's not going to happen. If you look at a MMA fighter, boxing, he's not doing anything else. Balance is terrible. His technique is terrible. But why? Because he's used to throwing a punch off angle. He's used to throwing a punch and landing a certain way. Why? Because he's setting up a kick. He's used to setting up a kick, used to setting up a takedown. So if my hands are here and I'm boxing, I'll throw a 1-2. If I'm in MMA, I'll throw the 1, right? Then throw the 2. Terrible technique if you're looking at it from a boxing standpoint. But if I'm looking to throw a leg kick, right? Or looking to get an arm drag, for example, it's perfect. It's perfect technique. So striking for MMA is not the same as boxing at all. It's not the same at all. Not the least, based on what the punches are meant to be setting up. Did that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Yeah. So going back, so I posted on my Instagram a short video of you discussing Floyd Mayweather, and then you included James Toney, and it ruffled quite a few feathers. There were quite a few comments. So I took the video, and in the video you mentioned that James Toney was it you say more skilled than Floyd Mayweather Jr. Was it? So he's more skilled, or he's more pure to the shoulder roll.
I'll just jump out there.
So how would you? So how would you expand upon that? So because sometimes being more, you said more talented, didn't you? It's more talented. So sometimes being more talented doesn't always equate to you being a better fighter or having a better career. But so if you were to choose then to expand on that, when you compare James Toney, Floyd Mayweather Jr. in any way, whether you want to compare the purity of the shoulder roll or their overall skills, what's your take?
Okay, you know what? Let's for a moment, let's have some fun. Believe it or not, I do have fun sometimes, right? Give me maybe one, I know what they are, but give me 2 criticisms of what I said that you've heard.
About Floyd Mayweather Jr.?
Yeah, my points about Floyd Mayweather, my criticism of him. Give me 2 of the most popular criticisms of me criticizing him. What were 2 of the objections?
I think it's more to do with fans.
I mean, of course, but what did they say?
So what do the fans say about Floyd Mayweather?
Yeah, like what's one of the issues that they have with what I said?
Well, the TBE, the best ever. You know, his undefeated record. I think Mayweather Jr. is the best of our generation. But when you compare him to all-time history, I think a lot of people forget about some of the greats who have come before him. So, and also that if you look at the styles, you said Mayweather Jr. fights more like Roy Jones Jr., which is correct, because I've done studies in both, and both of them use that lead left hand disguise the body jab into a left hook, into a lead left hook. So they're the 2 main ones I probably noticed. Is more people saying he's the best ever, and the unbeaten record, meaning that.
There you go. There you go. Now, I asked you that for a reason, because I knew what the answer was going to be. Now, my friend and brother, think about this. When someone says to me, proof of him being better than James Toney is his undefeated record, that's adolescent. I have said this. That's an adolescent answer. Well, why do you think he's the best? Well, Abu or Papi, he hasn't lost. That's why I think he can't lose. That takes no intelligence whatsoever to say that someone is better because they're undefeated. Because being undefeated, when you look at being undefeated in a career, only one part of that is your skills. You also have to look at who you didn't fight, who you just missed, whose prime you just missed, the period in time that you were born. And when I look at all those things, I'm very fair to Floyd Mayweather. To a boxing trainer, I am very fair to Floyd Mayweather. If I may, best welterweight of all time, Sugar Ray Robinson. Best junior welterweight of all time, just me, Aaron Pryor. Best lightweight of all time, Roberto Duran. Best junior lightweight of all time, Floyd Mayweather Jr. I'm very fair.
We can't disagree with that. There's some good calls, yeah.
I'm very fair. But when you're going to say that Floyd Mayweather is the best welterweight of all time, or let's say he's the best junior welterweight of all time, my question would be, is he going to be able to keep Aaron Pryor off for 15 rounds, who is going to fight for 15 rounds? That's a big question. Arguello couldn't do it, right? Other fighters who hit hard couldn't do it, right? Are you going to be able to do it without a referee breaking you up? Okay. Are you going to beat athlete? And I'm remembering, I just want to put this out there. Can you beat, remember Floyd Mayweather beat Oscar De La Hoya for the welterweight championship. Now, when he beat Oscar De La Hoya, he beat Oscar De La Hoya one fight before he was stopped by Manny Pacquiao. That's how old Oscar De La Hoya was at that particular time. And Floyd only won a split decision. Roberto Duran now beats a prime Sugar Ray Leonard in Montreal over 15 rounds, a unanimous decision. Sugar Ray Leonard, let's remember, was 5'10" and finished his career at almost light heavyweight, knocking people out. Are you, Floyd Mayweather, going to be able to last with a rampaging Roberto Duran? I don't think so. At welterweight, let's be realistic. He lost. What are you going to do with Thomas Hitman Hearns?
He's all wrong for anyone who uses Philly shell or shoulder roll.
And you see what I mean? What are you going to do with a Sugar Ray Leonard? The worst thing that happens with Sugar Ray Leonard is tell him he's behind. The problem with Sugar Ray Leonard, and you know this, my friend, you know this, the problem with Sugar Ray Leonard is when he decides to turn it on, how many people have been able to stop his onslaught in his prime?
Maybe the best finisher in history, Sugar Ray Leonard.
Thank you. Thank you. So when I look at Floyd Mayweather, I say, yes, one of the greatest of all time. I'm able to take my feelings for somebody's personal life and put it here. I've always been able to do that. There's people say, okay, you're pro-black, you're pro-Muslim, you're this, yeah. But who has supported Conor McGregor more than me?
Yeah, it's true. You've got quite a few videos, complimenting McGregor.
Right. If a man can fight, the man can fight. Floyd, greatest lightweight, junior lightweight of all time. Once you start coming up to lightweight, my friend, you got a problem. You got a problem. So when I look at him, look at the people he missed. You would know this. And this, I'm answering this question. Look at the people he barely missed. He missed a prime Felix Trinidad. He missed a prime Ike Cortez. He missed a prime Floyd, Oscar De La Hoya. He missed a prime Shane Mosley. If you talk about catchweight, he missed a prime Winky Wright. He missed a prime Fernando Vargas. Take all those guys, and if you're saying he's still undefeated, you're still talking about a great deal of wear and tear on his body that he didn't sustain fighting the people he fought. You see? So when I look at Floyd Mayweather, I just say, you just can't say he was undefeated. You have to look at the full body of things.
Yeah. If you compare him to old school fighters, for example, Sugar Ray Robinson. Robinson fought 91 fight unbeaten streak over 8 years. If you fight 91 times in 8 years, most people are going to lose because, like I said, the wear and tear. If you're fighting 2-3 times a year, it's a little bit easier to maintain that winning record as opposed to fighting every month. Robinson, Robinson's first loss to LaMotta, he fought someone 2 weeks later, 10 rounds, came back, and then beat LaMotta the following week. 3 fights in 3 weeks. You fight often enough, you're going to lose. And Robinson were 91 unbeaten. It's amazing. These guys, when it comes to conversation, the greatest ever, Robinson stands alone, and it's hard to put anyone from recent generation into that top 10
list. See what I mean? Excuse me. You see what I mean? I like Floyd Mayweather as far as boxing. Only an idiot would say he's not one of the greatest of all time. But you got the fans, and then you have the Floyd fans, and then you have the fans of boxing. I'm a fan of boxing, not just a Floyd fan. I want to say this too. When I said about James Toney, I did say, not you, me. So if anybody gets mad, they can get mad at me. I think he was a more talented fighter than Floyd Mayweather, right? Now, my laptop and yours is going to start smoking, but that's my personal opinion. If we're looking at pure Philly shell, I'll just give you this one thing because we want to talk about Ali and maybe some other things, but I'll give you this one example that I use. James Toney comes into boxing at 160. He comes from 160 up to heavyweight. And let's assume that, let's give him 220. So now what he's talking about 60-pound jump, right? 60 pounds. If Floyd Mayweather did that, coming in at 130, for Floyd Mayweather to use his Philly shell in the same way, right? He would have to win, let's say, let me be generous, not even cruiserweight. Let me give him super middleweight. He would have to win the super middleweight title, not in catchweight. You see my issue here?
Yeah.
One guy's, and I'm going to tell you how this happened. And all your viewers need to thank you. Thank you. May Allah save me from any kind of arrogance. They need to thank you for this interview, because what I want people to learn how to do is to train and not be fans. To train and not be fans. And I'm using that as a segue into this. Why was James Toney able to carry his Philly shell into a higher weight class and jump over the amount of weights or the poundage that Floyd wouldn't be able to do? Because Floyd has a blocking Philly shell, and James has a no hands defense Philly shell. That's where a lot of people miss. James obviously had to block and absorb punches to the body, but he preferred to slip clean punches. And whenever he could, he would fold under the left hook. That allowed him to move up in weight. Floyd would not be able to move up 60 pounds in weight because he's withstanding all of that pressure of every punch, not only to the body, but to the head. And the maximum weight he could go up to was basically 154 pounds, because he has a blocking Philly shell rather than a no hands defense Philly shell or slipping or evading Philly shell. So this is why I say, if you look at what the Philly shell was meant to be, what it was meant to be, then James Toney is more of a pure Philly shell based on what it was meant to be. It was meant to evade punches. It was also meant to use the torso to evade punches. So to the degree that you're moving your legs, you're not using the Philly shell. I'm going to say that again, not to you, but to your followers. To the degree that you're using your legs, you're not using the Philly shell. The Philly shell was designed to, one, go that way, go forward, but also to retain your position so you can counterpunch. That's why you would have the swivel, which is why they call it the Detroit Rock. The Detroit Rock comes from the rocking back and forth from your hip, right? And not using your legs. So James likes Floyd, but he has hinted at what he doesn't like about Floyd's style. And one of them is that he moves his legs a lot. It's okay to his fans, it's okay. But why does he move his legs a lot? Because if he stands there, he has a blocking defense, and he's going to keep getting that wear and tear, that poundage on him. So if you're looking at the Philly shell, purity of the Philly shell, the Archie Moore type of boxing, the Benton type of boxing, right? And yes, a lot of people don't know, they're going to be in for a surprise. The Jake LaMotta type of boxing, okay? Then you're looking at James Toney. You're not looking at Floyd. So in my opinion, pure Philly shell, James Toney is a modern day master of the Philly shell.
It's interesting actually, because you've mentioned Roberto Duran. Duran's first fight was at 119 pounds, and then he went up by the end of his career. He won the middleweight title weighing 160 pounds against a big middleweight in Iran Barkley. Crazy. And then you also mentioned about James Toney not using the legs as much. He was also considered one of the greatest fighters on the inside, and so is who else? Roberto Duran, who you mentioned also uses the shoulder roll, which you've touched upon as well. So it adds up there, doesn't it? With the Duran and Toney both being the best ever on the Republic.
Kudos to you for what you just said, because we would have ended this video without me bringing that up. You just brought up inside fighting, man. Inside. That's part of Philly shell.
Yeah.
That's all part of Philly shell. Inside fighting. So you bringing that up was, people need to hear that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, maybe the third now match would be Henry Armstrong on the inside. Armstrong, Duran, and Toney come to mind most for inside fighting. And the Armstrong as well, I suppose you could say, used a type of crouching crab style Philly shell, really, wasn't it? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Right. So next question then. Training to your nature. I've seen videos of yourself like training to your nature.
Oh, you
James
have
Toney,
watched,
for example.
have watched those videos.
James Toney, for example, people say he was born to fight. Roberto Duran, same thing, he was born to fight. Expand upon this training to your nature, because as you mentioned, a lot of people now, in the 70s, everyone wanted to copy Ali, bouncing around, flicking that jab out. In the 80s, everyone wanted to copy Mike Tyson, the peekaboo style. Now everyone wants to copy Floyd Mayweather Jr. with the Philly shell. But we're all different in our nature. So we should not be, I shouldn't be using my favorite boxer, Muhammad Ali. I shouldn't be bouncing around like Ali. I'd be tired within 30 seconds. So how do you then start training to your nature? And then some people just don't want to admit what their nature is. For example, if you're a nervous fighter, more nervous than someone else, how do you create a fighting style which gets you through that?
Do you mean how would you as an individual do it, or if you're a trainer, how would you help someone do it?
I suppose from your point of view, if we just go back to training to your nature, how is the importance of this, and how does one figure this one out? So from your perspective, how would you train to your nature? So this is taking yourself, for example, because then people could understand. So how did you train to your nature?
Oh, for me, I'm much like a Tyson, much like a Sugar Ray Leonard. Scared, just scared. When I get in front of my guys, people think that I teach. I really don't teach. I create training partners. That's what I do. I like to train. Obviously, I don't want to get a divorce, so I don't train hard with my wife, right? So I train training partners, and they learn at the same time. What I tell my guys, if I'm not nervous when we get ready to put on the gloves, then I'm not doing my job. I got 3 guys that work with me, right? I'm nervous. One of them in particular name is Glenn. He'll see this, he'll be glad. This guy pivots, bro. This guy will throw punches, and I have to watch him because he will end up right in back of me. And he has strict orders to, if he sees opportunity, to take it. I've always been a scary kind of fighter when I was fighting. Obviously, I don't fight now. Sugar Ray Leonard was the same way. Tyson was the same way. So what does this mean? I go that way. I go that way. That's the way I'm going to go. Because I'm so afraid that I know if I don't come after you, it's only going to get worse. You see? So people look at my aggression. They always did. They looked at my, oh, he's such a tough guy. No, I'm not. Right? But I know it's not going to get any better if I allow the man to make the decisions. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I fight to my nature, and my nature is one of a practical person. I once said my nature was one of a coward, and my wife had a fit. She says, no, I've seen you, just knock people out. Nobody coward. So it's a different way of looking at it. I'm just, I fight scared, but under control. I control my fright by being practical. I'm afraid, but my practicality makes me move forward.
So just sorry to interject here. So I understand I'm not sure if your biggest influence on your fighting style was Rocky Marciano. So then how did you combine the two? Well, because Marciano came forward all the time, didn't he? Crouching, coming forward.
Yeah.
So why Rocky Marciano? Why did you choose Rocky Marciano to base your sort of fighting style on then, your boxing style?
What happened was my favorite fighter of all time. Well, you take Ali, you put him here. You don't even include him because it's not fair to anyone else. Ali, of course, my favorite, right? For reasons so much more than the political thing that hopefully we'll talk about briefly, okay? Because I do want to hit on why he's the greatest heavyweight of all time, okay? Yeah. But we'll put him over here. My favorite fighter really is Marvin Hagler. Oh. He's Marvelous Marvin Hagler. I have more in common with him. I knew people in my neighborhood who looked just like him, right? So, and I even had shaved my head when I was a teenager and a goatee and a toothpick and everything. He's my favorite fighter. But what happened was I left boxing. I was remodeling kitchens, and I left boxing at 21. I ballooned. I went from 154 up to about 180 pounds. I come back to the gym, and my trainer tells me, you know, we can't let you spar with these other guys. 154 pounds, we can't let you do that. Although your height is about the same. I got a problem, man. I got a problem. Because he tells me, okay, you're going to spar with this guy. His name is Johnny, right? So you're going to spar with Johnny. Johnny just won the novice Golden Gloves, right? He's 6'2". He's 200 pounds. And I'm telling you something. I'm boxing with this guy. I'm going 3 rounds with him. I literally had to have a hot towel put on my jaw to loosen my jaw to get the mouthpiece out because I was biting down, you know, preparing for impact. I'm like, okay, you're 5'7", you're a cruiserweight. You can't stand straight up anymore. And you're not going to do the Joe Frazier thing. Who can you watch? Rocky Marciano. I said, okay, let me try Rocky, right? I started watching films. Now, nobody knows it, so you're telling people this, right? They don't know how I started. I started watching films of him, right? And I said, okay, all right. Now you can take this from him and put this with that, and this and that, and this and that. And that's how he became my inspiration. And he actually helped me to keep my brain cells because I had no other model at that time. Dwight Muhammad Kweli is one of my favorite fighters, but people should understand that I was boxing when he was boxing. So there wasn't the internet. I didn't have a lot of films of him because he's boxing at that time. They weren't archived, right? The only archives I could find was of Rocky Marciano that was short, fighting over his weight. So I started to take things from him. And to say something about him, who has one of the best shoulder rolls? Rocky Marciano. But you would never equate him with the Philly Shell. But he has a good shoulder roll.
I think people underestimate how good Marciano's defense was because they see him as a late starter, as a brute who just pressured you. But he gave away a big part of his game when he was commentating or analysing the fight of Sugar Ray Robinson. And Robinson was, I can't remember who Robinson was fighting, but his Robinson's opponent threw a left hook. And Robinson stepped inside the left hook. And Marciano said, that's how you defend the left hook. You step inside the punches. So by Marciano staying low, coming inside your punches, when you throw a punch, he came inside, he's closed the gap, and then that height advantage or reach advantage disappeared, and he's on your chest. Those short arms are just pummeling you. But people didn't see that part of the nuances of Marciano's defense game. They just thought he would just come in there and just beat your arms, and eventually your arms would drop and then punch you in the head. But no, he had a very good defensive game by stepping in, smothering your punches, and figuring out how to take away your reach advantage. So it's quite interesting how you combine the Marciano style of fighting with the Philly Shell style as well. So,
sure. And look at this. People criticize Marciano, and they say, okay, he fought Ezra Charles when Ezra Charles was old. True enough. He fought Jersey Joe Walcott when Jersey Joe Walcott was old. True enough. But you know, I love philosophy. I'm a philosopher or intellectual, I think, before a boxer. The question to ask is not the age that he fought these guys in, but if it was not for him, would they have been champion? The question is yes. Ezra Charles is good enough to be heavyweight champion. Jersey Joe Walcott was good enough to be heavyweight champion. They were not heavyweight champion because of Rocky Marciano. And when people criticize him and say, oh, but he fought him, but were they good enough? Had he not been the gatekeeper, would they have been champion? The answer is yes. So even if you look at his defense, could that man have survived with those people? Some of the best offensive fighters in heavyweight history, Jersey Joe Walcott, right? The original walk away and come back with the cross.
Yeah.
You're talking about the Cincinnati Cobra, Ezra Charles. Philly Shell. You wouldn't call it that, but watch him, Philly Shell,
Yeah,
right?
James Toney, big influence as our child, wasn't it?
There
Bill
you
Miller.
go.
Yeah.
Archie Moore, the old mongoose. He beats all three of them. Now, how is he going to be a scrub and he beats all three of these guys?
Mm.
But when you think of him, here's a problem with the defense. When you think defense, you obviously don't. But when you think defense, people think retreat. And this is why when they look at Durant, I know defense because he's going that way. Rocky Marciano, no defense. Jake LaMotta, no defense because he's going that way. Jake LaMotta loses to Sugar Ray Robinson. Why isn't he killed by Sugar Ray Robinson? Why does he lose, but he's not killed? Yeah, it's a Valentine's Day massacre, but he goes on to live. He doesn't suffer brain hemorrhages. Why? Because you imagine a guy just being a punching bag. Jake LaMotta wasn't a punching bag. Jake LaMotta had a good defense.
Yeah.
He was just going that way.
Yeah, and there's a well-known boxing trainer, the breadman Stephen Edwards. He touched upon the same point you just mentioned now. Defending going forward, like Julio Cesar Chavez, Roberto Duran, is arguably a lot harder than defending on the retreat. So again, yes, an interesting point you touch upon, which is echoed by another of the world's best trainers. Very interesting. Okay, so let's go back to the mindset then. As I said, you're excellent at breaking down the philosophy of fighting, the mindset of fighting. So you always get nervous whether you're sparring someone new, fighting someone new. We all have nerves. So if you were to break down a fighting mindset, how do you prepare a mind for fighting? How does a person whose nature is not to fight start boxing or any other combat sport? What is the fighting mindset? Overcoming fear, overcoming nerves. How would you break that down for someone?
If it's sport, if it's a combat sport, I would give them different advice than if I was teaching them like self-defense. I'll get the self-defense out of the way first because that's the easiest. When I'm teaching someone to defend themselves, I tell them the first thing they need is a reason to survive. They need a reason to survive. If it's not you, it's your wife. If it's not your wife, it's your children. Okay? You need a particular reason to hurt that person and to do something that you normally would not do, that your ethics does not allow you to easily do. You need a justification for that. So that's the easiest one. With sport, I always tell people you need to give the sport, the combat sport, the respect it deserves. It deserves a certain amount of respect, right? So if you're going to box, you need to understand what you need to do and who you need to be, at least for the period of time that you're boxing, or just don't do it. It's the same thing with karate, same thing with wrestling. Any contact sport, I tell them you have to give this particular event the respect that it deserves. And that way you will find, if you tell people that, you look them right in the eye, they will start to train in a certain manner. They will start to hit the bag in a certain manner. They will do everything from the time they walk into that gym in a certain manner. They will become the person they need to be in order to be the most during that particular situation. Because obviously you can try to tailor 20 different ways of talking to people, right? Based on different personalities. They have to take you all day. But the one universal thing to say to anyone is boxing demands this of you. It demands for you to give it the respect it deserves. Okay? No matter what style they're fighting from, that is universal. Okay? Eventually, you have to hit this person. Okay? You're not here on a buddy system. Eventually, that person's going to hit you. Don't take it personal. You see? It's part of job description. You see? So once you do that, it's like a one size fits all when you just say, based on this particular situation you're in, this should be your protocol. And then it changes to clip from that. That's what I use. Decorum.
Yes.
Yeah, decorum. I got a brother-in-law who says he has a certain decorum, and I always like that word. Yeah, decorum. Right.
It's very interesting, very important topic, isn't it? Because fighting, so much of it is in the mind. So if you haven't got that mindset right, it's all downhill, isn't it? So it's very important to touch upon that. So,
You know, I do want to say this also before I forget. I'm 5'7", 5'7". In my day, where do you think people gonna throw punches? They don't throw punches at my head. You know, everybody was aggressive with me. I tell my students, they say now I look intimidating because I had the scars, I had, you know, the nose that was shifted over and stuff like that. But initially I had hair down and here, I had what they call a beehive, I had my waves going around, you know, I mean, I wasn't intimidating at all, you know, so I had to develop a certain approach to what I was doing. And then my approach was like, that put the fear in people. That made people fear me. It was like, oh, that's not the one you want to go after. You know, that's not the guy whose beer you want to drink. You know, when I drink beer, I don't drink beer now. But, you know, but it's the mindset. I could go, even today, I say, why am I dangerous? The reason why I'm dangerous is not because Sayf Carman or I box. It's because whatever I like to do, I can do in solitary confinement. That's why I'm dangerous. I'm a dangerous man, not because I box, not because of karate, but because everything I like to do, I can do in solitary confinement. I can pray, I can read. And I'm not a people person. So being by myself is okay, which means that if I'm walking with you, I'm in the UK and somebody goes to attack you, I don't have any issue of being without a woman. I don't have any issue about not being in public. I can defend you because whatever the law would do to me because I murdered someone or because I killed someone in your defense is nothing that I don't like doing at home. You see what I mean? And that's all part of mindset. People, oh, you can kick, oh, no, that's not why. When I go to the mall with my loved ones, that's not why a man should fear me. He should fear me because whatever I would get incarcerated, people would think they were punishing me with if I was incarcerated, I like doing. You want to put me by myself? No problem. All I can do is read, no problem. 8x10 cell, no problem. I can do it less than that, long enough, you know, far enough for me to pray. You see, that's part of mindset. And let's say people who aren't Muslims. I don't want people to say, okay, well, you have to be Muslim. No. Look at people who are the most dangerous today. Quiet. Kind of, you know, they can beat themselves. They're separated from the good opinion of other people. Right? Look at them. Those are the dangerous people. Those are the dangerous people. It always comes down to the mindset. Always. I've seen some very skilled people, extremely skilled. Like you said, extremely skilled, hitting the bag, look, turning the bag, spinning the bag. And the coach says, okay, you look good. Tuesday, you're going to start sparring. Terrible. If they show up, they're terrible. Because it's the mind, that brain. If you don't control it, it's like an unruly child. It's
So
not.
So this mindset, do they have to consistently train this the same way they train their body?
All the time. All the time. From the time, and you know this, you're asking me this question, but I appreciate you asking me something that you already know the answer to.
Well, right? You're more of an expert on this, so it's best to get the expert opinion as opposed to myself.
But from the time you wake up to the time there is no rest. You know, there's no rest with me. I can't rest. I have to always monitor myself. You always have to do that. I mean, look at a situation. You go outside. You know what? I'll tell you this. I want to share this with you. I was a black belt. Was won a novice golden gloves. Was runner up in the open golden gloves. And up until that point, I thought that people would fear me based on what they knew. Guy gets drunk. He sees me in the mall. He cuts in front of my niece. I say something to him. He looks at me. He says, I know who you are. I don't give a F about your black belt. I don't give a F about your boxing. I'm going to F you up. Right? I almost lost my bodily function. Because what else did I have? Prior to that, I had my reputation. Yeah, this man's telling me I know your reputation. I'm not impressed. I mean, I really, all I did was hit him. I hit him first. And the reason I hit him first wasn't because I was a tough guy. The reason I hit him first is because I wanted to run. I had a black belt, was known in my city for being a good boxer. I was so afraid I wanted to run and leave my niece. And the only way to keep me from running was to force myself to remain there and push and get myself in a situation by punching him. Now, these are kind of things that you can't get if you're not talking about fighting. You know, what is it? You know, what makes a good fighter? Brother, I wanted to run, literally turn around and run and leave my niece there. I was that afraid. And all I did was just hit him. Boom. Now I'm forcing myself, I'm putting myself in a situation where I can't run. And I ended up winning it, you know, but that just got me. Know who you are. And I don't care. I have never, to this day, this happened 30 years ago. To this day, as I'm speaking to you, I'm nervous because it's coming back to me as a particular situation. So you always have to put yourself and look at the brain. I always want to tell people this. Your mind doesn't know what's real and what's not. Put yourself in dangerous situations psychologically. Spar that person you're afraid of, right? Get in front of that person you're afraid of in the gym. Do that. Keep doing that. Eventually the fear will dissipate or it will become manageable. But you always have to manage your mind. You can't, from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep, you have to constantly be on it. You can't let it just go where it wants to go because it will take you down to dark places.
So this is basically how you would suggest overcoming fear, is to do the action.
Yes. Look at that. Look at our brother. Look at um Thompson. Look at Thompson.
Jeff Thompson. Okay.
Jeff Thompson. What did he say? That he was a coward. So in order to deal with that, right, he got a job as a bouncer. To put himself in these positions where it would sink or swim. That's my best advice to people. If you have fear, if you have a fear, put yourself into that position. Keep putting yourself into that position. Before you do it physically, do it psychologically, because we always have, whether people think it's evolution, whatever you think it is, we have an apparatus that is designed to get us to where we need to go. So long as it's sure, we need that's what we want. So once we start to envision things, the brain is designed to make it simulate reality. So when you have fear, before you put yourself into that actual situation, you can transpose yourself into that situation. It's like we can do in the future. We're always thinking about the future. You're living in the future, right? I always tell people, if you're afraid, put yourself in that position and you will feel that nervousness. Eventually, the intensity will start to lessen where it's at least manageable. It will never go, but it will be manageable.
So does your advice on this, on the mindset of a fighter, does it change according to your opposition? For example, on the streets, you mentioned your size. On the streets, more likely you would be fighting someone bigger than you.
Yeah.
In the boxing ring, it may not be someone bigger than you, but it may be
And
someone
now,
who's known as a big puncher.
Yeah.
You know, someone's really fast.
Mhm.
So does your mindset now, your advice on cultivating that fighting mindset, does it change according to your opponent, or do you have the almost one size fits all? Got to have that reason why you want to win, and so on. Do you change your train of thought depending on who is standing in front of you? For example, the person who in the line with your niece, he called out that you're a good boxer and you're a black belt in karate. Does now all of a sudden your switch have to be more intense because of his response?
Oh yeah, yeah. Street. If it's a street situation, like now, I always tell people, like, a guy challenged me the other day, right? He saw me doing something and he says, I challenge you, right? And, do you accept challenges? I said, well, if you're 55 and over, you know, I'll knock you out. But if you're 55 and under, I'll bite your ear off. You spit in your face. I mean, like, come on. When I'm 20, I'm sparring people 20. You're not going to be 25 years old, get mad at Sayf Carman and say, I'm going to come and spar you, right? I'm supposed to spar you. I can take you to a gym, right? And find somebody in North New Jersey, Rush Street in North New Jersey, right? Who, you know, you can tell them you support Trump. That will really have them coming after you, right? And then you can go ahead and you can spar with them. But if you want to spar, if a person wants to spar me and they're 19 years old, they just don't like my opinion, well, I got to bite your nose off. I mean, I have to equalize things. If it's the street, it's one size fits all. It's one size fits all. I try to avoid things. Obviously, if I'm still here talking to you when I'm free, then I try to avoid things. But if I can't, it's, you know, it's balls to the walls. I'm going in. You know, I'm just going in. I'm trying to end it as fast as I can end it. Right? Now, if it's sport, like putting on the gloves, if they're an opponent, and I don't have opponents much today because, you know, I'm a wily old man and people kind of just, you know, he means well. That's what people know about me now. He means well. His bark's worse than his bite. But when I had opponents, if they're an opponent, it's one size fits all too. Because you have the right to say, I don't want to spar him. You have the right to say you don't want to fight me. But once you come into the gym, when I was younger, once they would come into a gym and Danny would say, well, who do you want to spar? You say, I want to spar that guy. Well, you can be a relative. You didn't say someone else. Then it becomes, you know, a major issue. It's one size fits all unless you're teaching someone. You know, if you're teaching someone and you know you can overwhelm them, and it's unethical for you to approach them like you would approach an opponent. But the street, one size fits all. Opponent, one size fits all. That's it. Again, we're talking about the situation and giving each situation the respect it deserves, whether they do or not. Doesn't matter.
That's interesting. So going back from the time you've been boxing, training, and teaching, have you noticed the decreasing of skills in boxing specifically? Are the skills which have been lost from when you started boxing? Because I saw a video of yourself where you mentioned Floyd Mayweather Jr. was watching you spar, and you done a move with the parry slip, and I think he's smothered with the duck and smother. Yeah. So have you noticed skills which were there which were quite commonplace, I suppose, maybe perhaps when you were boxing in the 70s, which now aren't being used as much? Are they lost arts of boxing from when you first started boxing back in the 70s?
Now, the younger people watching will be like, oh, finally, right? I'm fairly happy with where boxing is going now. You know, I'm fairly happy with where boxing is going now. I'm seeing a lot of things that now makes me stay up late to watch fights. Like the Devin Haney, Lomachenko fight last night here, Gervonta Davis, Shakur Stevenson. Now I'm very happy to see what's going on. Not only am I happy looking at skill sets, because when I look at Shakur Stevenson, I'm looking at, it's a little early to say, but I'm looking at a Pernell Whitaker. Okay, I'm really happy, you know, with what I'm seeing there. But I'm seeing, even more important than that, I'm seeing guys that want to fight each other. I believe Shakur wants to fight Devin Haney. I believe Devin Haney wants to fight Shakur. I believe Tank wants to fight all of them, right? So I'm happy with that. But there was a long period of time between the 90s and I would say, maybe up until 5-6 years ago? Let me be fair, up until about 10 years ago. From the 90s to about 10 years ago, where I didn't have much open boxing at all. I mean, it was just people calling themselves trainers that really weren't teaching as much as they were trying to make clones of certain fighters. But now I think it's a good time for boxing. It's a really good time for boxing.
I agree with your comparison between Shakur Stevenson and Pernell Whitaker, because when you watch them in the pocket, the calmness under fire, when I saw Shakur Stevenson, reminded me of Pernell Whitaker, the way they can just effortlessly slip punches and come back with a shot. Whitaker's always remained, calm under fire, and Stevenson's demonstrating those same traits, isn't he? So comparing eras then, from the 70s, 80s, 90s, you just mentioned there was that gap, in the 2000s, 2010s. How would you compare the era of fighters from the 70s up until now? And when people compare fighters, for example, we have guys like Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather Jr., comparing them to guys back in the 70s and 80s. What's your sort of take on the comparison? We often heard terms throwback fighter. James Toney could fight in any era.
Absolutely.
So how would you compare the eras of fighters, generations of fighters, since you've been following boxing?
Some fighters would fit in any era, and some of them wouldn't. This is obvious, and people are gonna be like, duh, of course. But to explain that better, look at Teddy Atlas, right? Who I don't care for at all. Now look at Teddy Atlas. Teddy Atlas said and I'm glad some of the names that you mentioned, I'm glad I'm talking to one of my peers, because I think you'll understand what I was saying. At first, I was telling my wife, there will be people who will see this interview who will understand what I'm saying. But you, the host, will understand what I'm saying, and that's even better. Teddy Atlas said about Manny Pacquiao, said he's not top 25 all-time featherweights. Now, see, me, you see what I mean? And this is why I don't like the guy, right? Because, come on, man, name 5 guys that not only can beat him, but could stay with him long enough under his onslaught. What are we talking about? We're talking about Salvador Sanchez, Azuma Nelson, Willie Pep. Bro, it starts to thin out from there. We're talking about beating him, not beating him, taking the punishment of a rampaging Manny Pacquiao in his prime. A man who just thoughtless offense. And here, this man, because he doesn't like him, Teddy Atlas, because he doesn't like him, he's not in the top 25. Are you crazy?
He's top 25 all time, let alone in one division.
Thank you. Hey, now, you want to get mad at this guy, right? Yeah, top 25 all time. And he says he's not even top 25 featherweight. So can he translate into that time? Yeah. Floyd Mayweather Jr., can he translate into junior lightweight? Yes. Translate into welterweight? No. We're talking about, again, our boy, Sugar Ray Robinson is 5'11". If you don't adjust it for today, for the microevolution, if you don't adjust it for today, 5'11" is still big. Mm. And he punches with both hands. And he has speed. And did you see what he did to Randy Turpin? You look at his speed, look at his hands, his attitude, man. If this guy wasn't a creep in the ring, he killed a man. The man said, Ray, how did you know you had him hurt? He said, boxing is a hurt business. Boxing is a hurt business, not, oh, my heart goes out to his family. Now, you're going to tell me Floyd's going to get in there, he's going to shoulder roll this guy all day? Kid Gavlan, he's going to shoulder roll this guy all day? No. Junior lightweight, I can't name 10 people that will beat him. That's where he belongs. Now, if you take, say, some fighters, I don't think they would do very well back then. I don't think some fighters would do very well back then, but you take a Sugar Ray Leonard. Can you imagine many people beating him 60 years ago? No. Nope. On a good night, I'm just saying, on a good night, him and Robinson.
Yeah, they're the 2 names, aren't they? Welterweight, Robinson and Leonard. And then you've got Thomas Hearns. Thomas Hearns, his size presents a problem for anyone in history, doesn't it? Welterweight.
There you go.
Those guys.
I'll give you another one. In any era, let's say he just wants to get to local Haagen-Dazs before it closes. In any era, who knocked out James Toney?
No one's knocked out James Toney.
Doesn't happen.
Like you mentioned, from middleweight to heavyweight.
Don't happen, bro.
Heavyweights can't knock out James Toney. No one at his peak weight's going to knock him out. No way.
See? So you got people who you can say, okay, you can sit them anywhere by some, Star Trek time, time transposition, whatever, and they fit perfectly. and then others don't. But I would say the difference, a major difference that I saw, and some of these things I'm bringing up because I know when we end this interview, I don't want to kick myself saying that I didn't bring it up. So this is why I'm bringing this up. One of my major objections to boxing today is that, unlike you, it's being ran by people who don't put on the gloves. And that's my number one issue. And this is and this is not a racial thing, because my biggest issue happens to be, I guess, because my associates will send me different videos. Happens to be, I mean, they're sending me back, guys who are black podcasters. No boxing. They're not doing any boxing. You don't have to be a professional. But on Thanksgiving once a year, you don't put on gloves with Uncle Charlie, with drunk Uncle Charlie. And so in the 70s and in the 80s, you know what was a major difference? All the guys who were downstairs playing around on the basketball court, guess what? We all boxed. We all boxed without exception. Some were better than others. But when the gloves came out Saturday morning, everybody there put on the gloves. Some got knocked out. Some had terrible technique, right? Everybody put on the gloves. It was a boxing culture when I was coming up. So what would we do? Here we go. You ready for this one? Because we boxed, when we heard that Ray Boom Boom Mancini was fighting Italian, we ran upstairs. Black guys in the ghetto, New Brunswick, New Jersey. Ray Boom Boom Mancini is fighting. We ran upstairs. Why? Because Ray Boom Boom Mancini went that way. Ray Boom Boom Mancini got hit in the face, and we knew what it was like to get hit in the face. So we appreciated people who would get hit in the face. You look at Mustafa Hamsho, and if it sounds like some of you guys looking at him, sounds like he's irritated. I'm irritated. You don't have to try to figure it out. I'm irritated. Right? I'll make it easy on you. We had Mustafa Hamsho was a gatekeeper of the middleweights. If you couldn't beat Mustafa Hamsho, you're not going to get to Marvin Hagler. Do you know how many times he appeared on television, brother? You know how many times he appeared on free television, NBC Sports, Wide World of Sports? 4 or 5 times. With losses. You know why? Because the people watching it, us young teenagers, we boxed. Not on his level, but we appreciated what he was doing. Today, you hear people say he lost. What did he lose to? The man lost to a Hall of Famer, but he lost. Oh my God. See, this is the problem. We boxed. Today, guys will say, who has the best resume? Best resume. They criticize this guy. Beyond anything imaginable, they criticize this guy. The best resume ever in boxing is Oscar De La Hoya. There's never been a resume, including Sugar Ray Robinson, with a resume like Oscar De La Hoya. His B class, his B level fighters were better than most of who Floyd fought in his entire career. I don't have time to list the people this man fought. He starts fighting Julio Cesar Chavez and ends with Bernard Hopkins. In between there, it's Floyd, it's Pacquiao, it's Pernell Whitaker, it's Trinidad. And you criticize this man. What? And people wonder why I get up on Ummah Fight Camp and say, I don't know how long I'm going to be on here.
Yeah, it's interesting, De La Hoya, because how many fights he had? About 40, but you're 6'8" world champion. And he did, as you said, he crammed in a lot of good fighters in a short space of time. That's the key. Very good fighters in a short space of time, one after another. He had a brutal sort of string of opponents. Yeah.
Mind-boggling. I tell anybody, Wikipedia. Just go to Wikipedia, boxing record. I'm telling you, if you have any here, you'll be pulling it out as to why people criticize him. Oscar De La Hoya, Oscar De La Hoya. I remember going to bars, right, and playing cards, right? Even when I wasn't drinking, go play cards. You know what the old men used to say? Guys, they would get drunk. We had this guy named Ruben. He would get drunk and count his money. Nobody would rob him. And you know why nobody would rob him? Because when he sobered up, he would come looking for the guy who robbed him. Because he drank Friday night, drank Saturday night, but his wife was a big church goer. He didn't go to church, but he would sober up on Sunday and get ready to go to work on Monday. He'd count his money, right? And he would count his money. Nobody, broad daylight in front of a bar, 4th of July, nobody would try to rob him. Okay. One time a guy said, Ruben, you keep counting your money, I'm going to rob you. And Ruben looked up at him and said, then where you going to live? Right? Because he would find him. You know what he used to say? You know who I like? Who's that, Ruben? Oscar De La Hoya. He'll fight anybody. Okay? But what do we hear? Young people who don't even put on gloves, my friend. 22 years old. You're 22, 23 years old. You're not in a wheelchair. You don't put on gloves. And you're talking about Oscar De La Hoya? You gotta be kidding me. I mean, I certainly am not going, I don't have time for those people. This man, I can't, as I'm speaking to you, names are popping in my head. Jesse James Leha, Ike Cortez, fights them all. Fights them all. And the only thing they say is, well, he lost. Yeah. Well, here we go. Here we go. You ready? Hopefully you're sitting down. If Floyd Mayweather fought all them, he would have lost too. There you go. That's one for you. That's one for your people. Right? If he fought all them, he would have had at least one loss on them. And I don't mean one as close as the first Castillo fight. We won't hit on that one. But I'll really be getting myself in trouble.
Well, that actually ties in nicely to my next question about Muhammad Ali. Now, recently, I've noticed this trend on social media of downplaying Ali's achievements. So you mentioned Castillo versus Mayweather. People will now say, well, Ali actually lost all 3 fights to Ken Norton. He lost to Jimmy Younger as well. He got a gift decision because he got Doug Jones in the early days. Yeah, so he got gift decision because of who he was, not because of his boxing skill. He lost to Leon Spinks, who was in his 7th fight. And people are beginning to say, well, Ali's not the best heavyweight of all time. So and so would have beaten him. I don't believe any of that. I think Ali, quite honestly, is quite easily the best heavyweight of all time. But what is your take on Muhammad Ali and why you believe him to be the best heavyweight of all time?
Okay, I could say a whole lot, so I prepared myself yesterday to condense it, to make sense. We'll start with the first one. Today, and there is more than anywhere else. There is black and white. Today, white experts always vote Ali as the best ever. Now, I say that because he is so good that even the urge to be biased is pushed down because he was that good. Okay? When we look at him losing to Ken Norton, if we look at those 3, there's things that most people don't understand. One, Ali was the A side his entire career. The A side his entire career. One of the few fighters that was the A side his entire career, even without a title. Which means that he only fought people because he chose to fight them. And Norton breaks his jaw. He fights him 2 more times after that. So here we have a guy who people think beat him. That's their opinion. Obviously, it was a close fight, but he chooses to fight this man, right? After he breaks his jaw. I'll contrast that with 6 years of Floyd Mayweather avoiding Manny Pacquiao. 6 years in his division, after being tested, after being knocked out by someone else, still refuses to fight him. Okay, I have to get that in, right?
I'll quickly add as well, Ali did not avoid anyone. He fought everyone. Gave everyone a shot.
Okay, now he fights that guy 3 times. He fights Smoking Joe Frazier. When he fights Joe Frazier the first time, Joe Frazier is the Manny Pacquiao of the heavyweight division. And Ali is not avoiding him. Not only is he not avoiding him, but he's showing up at Joe Frazier's gym and challenging him. And Joe Frazier can fight so well that Roy Jones is asked, is Ali a boxer or is he a fighter? And Roy Jones said he is a fighter. And he said, why do you say he's a fighter? He said, because you don't fight and beat smoking Joe Frazier and you can't flat out fight. Okay? He fights Joe Frazier 3 times. The first time he knocks him down. He gets up from a punch most people wouldn't get up from. And what does he do as the A side? He demands a rematch. He fights the man 3 times, 2 more times, and he's the A side. Excuse me. He's the A side. I want the viewers to understand what this means again. What this means is I want to fight that man again who knocked me out. Okay? Just take that alone. And you're talking about a man unlike we still have seen today. We haven't seen any man like that in the ring today like that. Let's go further. What people also forget is as Cassius Clay, unlike Floyd Mayweather, and unlike a lot of other fighters, Cassius Clay was a consensus best light heavyweight in the world as an amateur. It was nobody's surprise that Cassius Clay turned into being a good fighter. They just didn't think he would be a great fighter. At 155-5, he was a consensus best light heavyweight in the world. Not winning a Golden Glove here, not winning a Golden Glove there, in the world. Okay? So he did not come in being a surprise that he was a good fighter. Now let's look at stats. You have 10 all-time great heavyweights or 10 all-time great in any division. You know where I'm going with this, right? You can have your entire
100% agree with you. I know what's coming. I agree with you 110%.
Okay.
Carry on, please, please.
You can have your entire career and not fight one all-time great. You will fight a pound for pound because if you won a title at any time in your life, even if you defend it one time, you might eventually get a Hall of Fame, excuse me. You might eventually get into the Hall of Fame. But an all-time great, you only have 10. There are people who go their whole career and don't fight one. The consensus to any expert is George Foreman, Sonny Liston, and Joe Frazier, all 3, wherever they placed them, happen to be in the top 10 all-time great. Ali beat all 3 of them. He beat 30% of the all-time great heavyweights in history, 30%. Let's put that there. Now, let's look at all-time hardest punches. Between Ernie Shavers and George Foreman, depending on who you're talking to, they're 1 and 2. Joe Frazier usually ends up around 6 and 7. Him and Rocky Marciano will switch places. Ali stands up against George Foreman, Joe Frazier 3 times, and Ernie Shavers, okay? And beats all 3 of them, doesn't get knocked out. When we look at Ernie Shavers and George Foreman, he's way past his prime. Not only is he past his prime with both of them, but with George Foreman, the strategies to get hit. Let's let that sink in. I pause for effect. Against the Mike Tyson of his day, his strategy is to get hit. And since the odds are overwhelmingly against him, the rope that he used to this day is in the Smithsonian Institute. Because he was a 200-to-1 underdog. Unbelievable. Okay? All this is done with 3 years missing from his prime.
Yeah.
All of this is done, Floyd Mayweather fans, with 3 years missing from his prime. 3 years, 27, 26, those are primes. Look at any fighter and look at what they did during those 3 years. It's gone. It's gone. Lastly, we have a man named Jimmy Jacobs. Jimmy Jacobs was a former manager of Mike Tyson. Jimmy Jacobs had a film library so huge, he sold it to ESPN. He had a machine that could actually record and gauge the speed of the people on film. He said he put a film up of Ali and put a film up of Sugar Ray Robinson, a welterweight known for his speed. And he said Ali was twice as fast as Sugar Ray Robinson, twice as fast as a welterweight, twice as fast as welterweight. So I was finished with that, but I got one more. With all this speed, what was Ali in the early part of his career? With all that speed, Muhammad Ali was a knockout artist. He predicted the round and he was knocking out people. With his losses, his knockout percentage is higher than Floyd Mayweather as an undefeated fighter. So 30% of the all-time great heavyweights, not the best at that time, all-time great heavyweights, 30% he beats himself. The hardest punchers, he takes their blows, doesn't go down. The fastest heavyweight in history, according to Jimmy Jacobs, twice as fast as Sugar Ray Robinson. 3 years of his life were taken away from him, and he still is the greatest heavyweight of all time. There is no, and what are we doing now? We have a big fat dude, right, who fights in retreat named Tyson Fury, right? He's bigger than Evie, right? And why this man, I move forward and I'm 5'7". At 62, I move forward and I'm 5'7". He starts in retreat, and when he knows you have nothing left, then he comes and he beats you, right? We still can't get a guy that can move around for more than 2 rounds without being exhausted and falling out of the ring. And Muhammad Ali, we had a man who's 220 pounds, right? And if you look at still pictures, he is literally on his toes like Mikhail Baryshnikov or Rudolph Nureyev. A 220-pound man, literally not on the balls of his feet. And we're saying, you know, for the sake of being dramatic, he's on his toes. No, on his toes. You can find this in a girl Manila. He's trying to get away from Joe Frazier, and he's getting off the ropes. And as he gets off the ropes, he has to get up on his tippy toes to dance out of his way. 220 pounds. Unbelievable. There are people you will see and people you will never see. You will never see a man 6'10", 6'11", who can play point guard all the time. That's his designated position, right? Not that he plays point guard because it's a good matchup for that particular series, but that's his position. You will never see another Magic Johnson. You will never see another Muhammad Ali. You will never see another Manny Pacquiao, right? Those people you will never, ever see ever again. You will see another Floyd Mayweather. You will see him. You see some of them now. A Shakur Stevenson, when he's done, he may not be undefeated, but when Shakur Stevenson is done and you look at his highlights and look at Floyd Mayweather, you will look at Shakur Stevenson and say, where the hell did he learn that? Okay? You will see a Floyd Mayweather. You will not see another Muhammad Ali ever in your life. Never. That fast, hit that hard. If he was hitting you regularly, I remember they asked him about Joe Frazier. They said, Ali, that you hit Joe Frazier 200 times in the face. Is that true? He said, of course. You think he was born that ugly? Right? I mean, the man had knockout power, fast, chin, mobility. What else do you want? Clearly. And if you think he couldn't win, who would beat him? Who would beat him? He's like Sugar Ray Leonard. Who's going to beat him when he decides he's behind on points? When he decides to turn that faucet on, who has a defense to withstand that onslaught? Who? Some fighters are like that, my friend. Think about him. Manny Pacquiao in his prime. Manny, you're losing. You're his coach. You say, Manny, you're losing. You're losing. He doesn't care about defense. You tell me who can hold that man off in featherweight. If he goes balls to the walls and he's not worried about defense, who's going to deal with that volume of punches? Sugar Ray Leonard, Manny Pacquiao, Muhammad Ali, you don't stop him. Floyd Mayweather, you stop him. One punch here, one punch there. He ain't going to take you out. He's not interested in really taking you out. You tell him he's behind on points, he'll stand there for a minute. At the end of the day, he's going to still be conservative with his punches and then say, okay, you were on steroids, that's why he lost. Right?
Well, I found myself nodding a lot during that talk on Muhammad Ali because I agree with a lot of it. I do feel I need to defend my fellow countryman Tyson Fury. I quite like him. he's well, I suppose Usyk will find out who's the best, but yeah, valid
and I'm
points.
going to say something about one of your countrymen that, you know what, I try to keep this guy a secret. But you guys never really appreciate him as much as you should have, man. And I think that this guy, I love this guy, man. This guy, you're talking about the mind game, Chris Eubanks Sr.
Yeah, Chris.
Chris Eubanks Sr. Now, see, if I wasn't talking to you, I would never have revealed this because people think I tell them everything. Now it's out. Now it's out. Chris Eubank Sr. That dude, man. He's probably, after Marvin Hagler, my second favorite fighter. And
Oh,
why?
really? Second favorite to Hagler. Wow.
Second favorite, because Ali's here. But after Hagler, it's Chris Eubank Sr. Reason is because he wasn't the subject, but I have to say, because some people go, why are you picking him? Footwork. To come out with his hands here, chest high, and fake forward, move back, fake this way, fake, and then when you get coach, he would put his hands up, but his hands were here, just here, and he just step forward, step back, and make you reach. He was just not appreciated, and I don't know why. Maybe now I'm going to turn the tables very quick. Why? Tell me.
I personally think because
the arrogance, or what they call
yes, I think it's because of his attitude. That's what I think was, because maybe it's in the culture of the country more. They don't like. They don't. I think someone told me like why they love Frank Bruno so much, for example, because he would lose, but he was always polite about it. They support the sort of. I forgot the word to describe it. But Eubank was more arrogant, so I suppose they always wanted to see him lose. But yeah, he was. He had heart. He was tough.
Yeah, man.
Eubank is. He was a good fighter. As I say, he was tough. He had heart. When he lost to Steve Collins, he measured his was one of the things he spoke was the mindset of Steve Collins, how he turned the mind games back on Eubank and Eubank Senior, didn't he? But Eubank Senior was it's just strong fighter, very good fighter, and we had great times growing up in the 90s watching Eubank, Ben, Watson, Collins. They were like some of the most memorable nights for us growing up watching boxing on free TV. So that's a good memory. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. I don't think he's appreciated enough, and I think it is because of his attitude. People saw him as arrogant in a culture which doesn't really like that sort of attitude.
And the States, man. You know how big he would have been in the United States.
Yeah, because
that ring entrance when he stands up, and he go.
Yeah, it's true because I find the American fighters tend to talk a little bit more, but it's not seen as arrogant because it's almost part of the culture, isn't it? It's just
right.
Yeah. Whereas here it's seen as the other way. But yeah, you're right. I think if Eubank Senior, was an American fighter, he definitely would be appreciated more. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I got 2 DVD sets. I'm like Derrick James, and since I don't watch a lot of boxing, right? 2, one of Marvin Hagler, and the career set of Chris Eubank.
Nice. Yep. I have to ask you now, did Sugar Ray Leonard beat Marvin Hagler?
Yeah.
I think he won it by a round or 2.
It hurts me. But in all fairness, Hagler gave up the first 4 rounds. He agreed to 10-ounce gloves because he thought he could knock him out anyway. And he agreed to a bigger ring. So yeah, he lost to him. And I really don't have a problem saying it. I know why he lost, but I don't really have a problem saying he lost to him. In fact, I don't have a problem saying, I don't think I've ever had a problem saying that someone lost a fight without making excuses. I don't really think I don't really operate that way. I think I have issues. The only time I have an issue with someone losing is if I think people bring in a racial issue. And that's something that didn't exist during my time. The time that and some people might be surprised, but it was because most of us boxed. So we appreciate whoever did box. So Ray Boom Boom Mancini was Italian. And we would watch him fight, right? We loved him to fight. Half of the people that were Black in my housing project, half of them thought Roberto Duran would beat Sugar Ray Leonard in the first fight. I was one of them. And we didn't think we were selling out. We didn't think it was like that because we had Spanish people in our neighborhood. We just didn't. And I think the internet messed that up a lot. It brought in all these things that you otherwise would not know
Yeah.
about how people felt. But you pick Roberto Duran, and my brother-in-law, my favorite brother-in-law, he's a big fan of still Roberto Duran. Saladin loves Roberto Duran, right? And we were like, oh man, I think Duran's gonna beat him. I never dawned on me, oh, I'm being a traitor to my race. I just thought Duran knew how to beat Ray, right? So today I have an issue because people bring in the racial issue. And I always say that I'm for Floyd whenever he's fighting a white guy. And the reason is because here they bash Floyd runs. Right now, this is what people think I'm an enemy of Floyd Mayweather. He runs. He doesn't run. But you look at YouTube right now. I know you hear this. You look at YouTube right now. He runs. He runs. Why? How you gonna say he runs? The 6th round against Arturo Gatti, the 6th round, he had a string of like 9 punches where it was one of the greatest onslaughts, offensive onslaughts I've ever seen. Yeah. Where Gotti was getting hit so much, he was like this. He just couldn't move. Body, hit, body, hit. And then Floyd bounced off. Right? Why you gonna say he runs? So this is why I have an issue with your man Tyson Fury. Well, because what do they say? They can't say he's the best for this time. He's the greatest of all time. Come on, man. He's not, why the greatest of all time? And then once they say he's the greatest of all time, then of course, no, Ali was greater, but Ali lost. Now, of course, you're going to get some pushback because I'm going to say, well, what makes him the greatest of all time? Dylan White? Or what makes him the greatest of all time? If they left that stuff out, then you could say, then I would tell the truth. I would say for big man, he has skills, right? I would tell the truth. And of course, I would also add and also tell another truth. For all you racists talking about how much better he is than Ali, ironically, he doesn't try to fight like Marciano, but he tries to fight like Floyd Mayweather, who's a black guy. Right? I mean, let's just be realistic.
Well, Tyson Fury is trained as well by Kronk, Detroit-based, isn't it? So he must have that.
You're willing to say that. You're willing to say that. People know that. But how much do they say when they're saying that? They will say he's better than Ali, and that's it. Nothing else. You don't say it, but I hear it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I hear it as well. I do hear those things.
Now, once you say that, it's going to be some pushback. Why would you say that? Where I haven't heard him say anything racist. So sometimes I will say something against him, and in my heart, I'm saying, this man, he probably don't. But I have to say that because I'm on YouTube. These people are commenting. They get irritated if I don't allow them to comment. So I say, okay, if you want to comment, then if you don't want me to block you, then I'll allow you to comment. But I can't let you say this man's better than I'm home. Or this man is better than Muhammad Ali. I can't allow you to say that. Look at Josh Taylor. People got upset because I said that Josh Taylor was overrated. But what did they do? They made him number 4 because he was undisputed junior welterweight champion. But they put him over, my friend, over who? Terrence Crawford, who prior to him was undisputed junior welterweight champion and was now welterweight champion. Now, people, you know, I got death threats. People actually said, I'm going to kill you. Okay, where's Josh Taylor now? He's getting ready to fight Teofimo Lopez. But where is he? This great Josh Taylor, who everyone said was the greatest fighter. He was just better than Terrence Crawford. You see what I mean? Why would you put him there? Now, if you said he was in the top 10, do you really think that Sayf Carman, who prides himself on being fair, would say the undisputed junior welterweight champion of the world should not be in the top 10? Begrudgingly, I would say it, but I would say nonetheless that's where he belongs. But they put him over Terrence Crawford and a couple other guys. I'm like, wow, really? And then the response to that was, oh, you're a racist. Come on, man. You got to be fair. There's nobody that wanted Vasily Lomachenko to win more than I wanted him to win other than Vasily Lomachenko. Because I know the knock against him. You see what I mean? I'm looking at this man and I know He is a blown up featherweight.
Mm.
But because we're dealing with a fan base that doesn't box, they don't get what they saw last night.
Yeah. You know, in about 10, 20 years after Lomachenko's retired, people are going to look at his record and think, three losses in 20 fights, he can't be that good. Because they don't know boxing. They don't know how many good fights he's fought one after another as well. When you fight the best consistently, you are going to lose. And he's, like I say,
I don't know
he's
if that's
fighting.
my side or your side. How am I coming across?
I could hear you, but the screen has frozen. Now it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, you know what I mean? So if people would see what I see, then it would be easier. You know, if people would see what I see, it would be more pleasurable for me.
I think it's having a knowledge of the history of boxing, isn't it?
Yeah, and give credit. Like, give credit to the people. Get hit in the face. You know, just get punched in the face.
Yeah.
You know, if you get punched in the face, you'll know how difficult it is to make a living getting punched in the face.
Exactly.
Right? It will make not calling somebody a bum who's getting punched in the face, because you're like, man, this guy's paying his rent by getting punched in the face. So I'm going to be careful in how me calling him a bum. You see what I mean?
One round of sparring is one round of full sparring is extremely taxing, and you got to see these guys that are doing it for 12 rounds. They're amazing athletes.
Exactly. I have to share this with you. I became to respect fighters through a situation that happened. I was 19. Okay. And the last thing I say is this: I want this to help people to judge fighters fairly. The guy comes into the gym, and I had seen him on ESPN. I saw him get knocked out. He looked terrible. His record was 15 and something like 12. Okay. Comes into the gym. Danny asked me if I wanted to spar. I turned around and said, yeah, I saw this guy. Oh, yeah. It's a full house. I'm on spar. Okay. No problem. The guy says, I only go 7 rounds minimum. Go 7 rounds. No problem. I'm chipping away at him. I'm looking all-time world beater, Hall of Famer myself. I'm looking 3 rounds. I get tired. Now I'm on the ropes and I'm using all my tricks, but he beats the crap out of me, right? To me, because I'm tired. I'm just like kind of stalling for time for the next 4 rounds, okay? So I look at Danny, and I don't come in the next day. I come in the following week. He says, kid, where you been, man? I really miss you. I said, Danny, you didn't see how I looked, right? He says, what happened? I said, you were there. I said, the guy's 12 and 15 and 12, and I saw him get knocked out. He's terrible. He's a bum. He's a bad execution. He said, here's the problem. He said, you look sharp for 3 rounds. He punches terribly, terrible technique, but he can do it for 15. See, this man, I know I can beat him. I saw him get knocked out. His record is 15 and 12. I can beat him. No, because whatever he's doing terrible, he can do it for as long as he needs to do it. He's paying his car note by punching. Forget being sharp, forget looking good. He can do it for as long as it takes him. And that's when I first realized they're not bums, my friend. They're not bums. You know, if you don't know what it's like to get punched in the mouth, you shouldn't open your mouth about fighters. Yeah. Right? And I obviously can't do anything about it. You know, I can't force people I can't say YouTube, put some kind of metal thing with rivets over their mouth as soon as they start talking about boxing. But when people look at someone like me and they say, why is he so irritated? It's because you don't have to be a world beater, but you were looking at people like Oscar De La Hoya. And because his wife is plastic, or he looks a certain way, or, some people say he was a cross-dresser. I mean, whatever that is, the man's resume.
Yeah.
You see, no matter what Manny Pacquiao does, my friend, me and you know what we were seeing. Manny Pacquiao was the saddest story in boxing. Manny Pacquiao, and I mean going back 60 years, Manny Pacquiao is the saddest story in boxing. Why? Because nobody will ever know what they were looking at when Manny Pacquiao was fighting. No one will ever know what they were looking at on sheer volume and punching power. This man went from what 118 maybe?
Maybe even less than that. He was 8-weight world champion, so even less than that, yeah.
Okay, he just like maybe 112. Less, I think
108, 108, 112, yeah, yeah.
Right, he goes from there to the precipice of 154. And the only thing you have to say about him is he was on steroids, just proven by your boy Floyd, not you, but their guy having to pay him for it. He still has never tested. Dirty. And they don't know what they're looking at. For me, that's sad. For me, that's sad that somebody, one of the 3 or 4 fighters you will never ever see again, Ali, Manny Pacquiao, you will never see that. We will never see a 112 pounder, 106 pounder go up to junior middleweight. We'll never see it because you need the punching power. Yeah, and just like Timothy Bradley said, he said every other, when you have a 3-punch combination, he said usually the 3rd punch is the hardest one. He said with Manny Pacquiao, every punch is hard. Every punch is like a brick. But look what happened. Look at his legacy. Doesn't matter. Comes back. Doesn't matter. See a poster. Doesn't matter. Pretty much the only people that care about him are the Filipinos. And yet this is bad.
It's not just punch power. It's punch resistance as well. You're going up against bigger guys.
Oh, that too. Bigger. Yeah. How did I miss that? That too. And then I think the second one, I think why he just popped in my head, is Broner, Adrian Broner. And that's a sad situation too. No matter what else he does in his career, if you watch highlights of Adrian Broner, talent going away. Talent going away. If you just forget, if anyone forgets what they don't like about his personality and try to box that away, right? Try to bracket that away and just watch highlights of him. And then talking about that Philly show, just watch highlights of him. Unbelievable. Can't forget that he fought Manny Pacquiao. Yeah. He fought Manny Pacquiao. That's his prime, but he did less moving against Manny Pacquiao than Floyd did. Why? His defense. Wasted.
Broner's a 4-weight world champion, but people have already forgotten that.
Yeah.
To become a 4-weight world champion, you got to have skills, talent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame. Yeah, it's a shame how his career has turned out. But yeah, he did have so much skill and talent, and you don't become a 4-weight world champion without that, without being abundant of skill and yeah.
I knew there was something else I wanted to say. Pad drills. I know this is going to bore people. Might be bored with this. Again, I say something about the trainers. Pad drills. People make fortunes on pad drills. That's something that irritates me too, because I'll condense it. Pad drills don't make great fighters. They don't make great fighters. There's a rumor that Ali didn't even hit pads. James Toney didn't like hitting pads. Virtually no one that we consider great hit pads in the way that Floyd Mayweather hits pads. Okay? If you look at one person who had very elaborate pad drills, who was it? Yuriorkis Gamboa. Very flashy. Would you say he was like the other guys? Look at what's his name? Derek James. Look at his pad drills. I even did before I came on with you. I wanted to make sure I was right. Believe it or not, I do try to make sure that I'm right. Right? It's just not my bias. You look at the best trainers today, they don't use elaborate pad drills. They don't use them. Now, there's people that will say, and I say this because it's a pet peeve of mine, that people think the more elaborate the pad drill, the better the fighter. Pad drills in the beginning help you develop hand-eye coordination. But beyond that, it should help you to develop positioning. So if you can see my hands, a good pad drill, for example, would be, say, a 1-2-3. right? 1, 2, jab, cross, left hook. Now I move into the person. Now, once they throw those 3 punches, I move into the person. Now they know they have to dig for uppercuts. They go 1, 2, 3, bang, bang. Then I pivot. When I pivot, they know they throw the cross and the left hook. Now that's gonna be 1, 2, 3, boom, boom, bam, bam. That is boring to people, but that's how a fight plays out. A fight doesn't play out. Now, some people might say, prove that. Thought they never asked. Roger Mayweather's pad drill system, the most elaborate there is. Who's one of the most conservative punchers in the history of boxing? Very accurate. Floyd
Mayweather Jr. Yeah.
Very conservative. Threw less punches than most fighters, given his greatness. Okay? So, why was that pad drill there? Hand-eye coordination, you can say that. More for show. More for show. Why don't the Mayweathers, why haven't they developed a better stable of fighters? Had the pad drills. Why? Because at the end of the day, when you begin hand-eye coordination, there's a reason why those pads are as big as a man's head. There's a reason, hand-eye coordination. But beyond that, you need to simulate a fight. Most people don't simulate fights. When a fighter can fight, you have to start to simulate it, right? You have to back them up to the ropes. You have to show them how to pivot. Don't pivot so wide. If you're going to pivot, you're pivoting to be able to punch the guy. You'll pivot short if you're going to throw an uppercut, pivot wider if you're going to throw a cross, right? So they're not doing it. They don't teach them how to spin. How many guys have I seen? They don't teach them how to spin a man. Take them, spin them into the hook, spin them into this. They don't teach them how to pivot shallow. They pivot far too wide, too much space. So when people are doing these pad drills, they're going to do it. There's a lot of money in it. But people who want to train, I always say this, and this is a freebie. People should stop. Well, obviously, if you put out one and I put out a download, people are going to learn, right? Okay, we know that. People should watch fight. Watch fight. There's no substitute for watching, whether it's MMA or whether it's boxing, watching what people do. Because getting an 8 DVD set, and I'm big on this, getting 8 DVD sets of disconjointed techniques that will appeal to the fantasy of people, of the average fan, people are not going to get better. The best way to learn how to fight is to pick a fighter that they like and to watch them. If you're training somebody, they have a particular body type, say, coach, you know what fighter I like? Who do you like? I like this guy. And then you tell them, well, we can work on that, or we can't work on that. And the reason why we shouldn't work on that is because your height or your temperament or this is the way you will have to be to utilize this style. But you might say, I see that. Okay, this is what we're going to work on. And then what would you do? Going back to what I said, what would you do first? First thing you got to do, Joe, you want me to work with you to help you to fight like this guy. The first thing you have to do for me is show me you can defend yourself. Right? That's what we were talking about. You show me you can defend yourself, then I'll try to work with you if that's a fighter you like. But there is no substitute to watching how things are done. It's not as sexy, it's boring. But this, that's the best way. Just watch the fight. So these pad drills, I'm not a big fan of pad drills that are elaborate. You have to simulate.
Definitely.
Right.
Yeah. I'm glad you spoke about that, because I've interviewed a number of coaches and they've all spoke about the same thing, the role of pads in training fighters. And there is a point of contention, but I think everyone agrees that if you use the pads correctly, they can be useful. But as you mentioned, the Mayweather pad work, a lot of people have taken it and made it into a marketing tool to attract more clients, to attract the person who doesn't want to fight. They just want to come to training after work, punch the pads for an hour, get fit, and pay money for it. So it's become a big money spinner really in the industry. But yeah, when it comes to training fighters, look at the old school fighters. The pad work was very specific. They still use pad, but very specific. practicing a counter, someone throws a left hook and come back with a hook cross roll, something like that. Very specific set pieces, as opposed to, as you said, elaborate 20-punch combination, which just we're not going to translate into the ring at all. Yeah.
How much time do we have? We got 2 minutes, 3 minutes?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, because I don't want to keep. We got a lot of time. We've been on what for 2 hours? Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I just saw the time as well. So I didn't even notice, because when you enjoy a conversation, time just flies, doesn't it? You don't even look at the clock, so it's good.
This is beautiful. All right, just let me say this, man. Then whatever, however you want, we can end it, whatever. Sparring. People need to spar, and I'm not talking to you. I'm preaching to the choir with you, but I want other people to know there's no substitute for sparring.
Yeah,
and more than pad work, it's sparring.
Yes.
Sparring, because the way Floyd defends, they always got Floyd defending like this, with that shoulder roll. There are still pictures of him defending by bending all the way over. His head's almost touching the canvas. It doesn't come from a pad drill. That comes from trying to survive sparring.
But now Whitaker, right? Where he used to bend.
Oh my God! Again, James Toney, Pernell Whitaker. I mean, like the nose to the canvas. Right. So sparring is important, and hard sparring all the time is unnecessary. You don't need to spar hard all the time. 50% is good. But people need to understand sparring is no substitute for sparring. And that creates the fighter. Sparring actually creates the fighter. And some people might ask, why don't I say spar hard all the time? If a person spars hard all the time, they're only going to do those things they're sure of. So to the degree that you spar hard, learning starts to minimalize, because the punishment for doing something wrong when you're sparring hard is getting hit hard. So when people are learning something new, and you want them to learn something new, have them spar no more than 50%, because they're more willing to take a chance, because the punishment of doing something wrong and getting caught, it's not as taxing. But sparring hard, you find people only do what is easy for them or what they're sure of, and the learning stops. There's no more learning when you really spar very hard. And in this way, what you say?
I was agreeing. A very valid point.
Yeah, I need to get that in, because when people see me almost 62 in June, inshallah, I literally, like, I have my guys come after me, like 5 of them. Now, if you hear the mic, you hear they're throwing punches, but it's like 50%. 25%, I don't have what I need. Remember, I told you I'm scared. I don't have that sense of danger if it's 25%. I need a certain sense of danger, or I get bored. So they're always 50%. Then I call another guy and he comes in. And I always save the ones who are most skilled, like Glenn. Hey, Glenn. I always save the ones who are most skilled, who could be pros if they wanted to be, for when I'm exhausted. I always save them for when I'm exhausted. Because now I'm really working on my defense. I'm doing what is necessary. But sparring, if someone said, what's the 3 things that they need to do, I would say sparring. 50%.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I'll go back, because you sort of, in my opinion, you're validating yourself as a boxing coach as well. Because going back to Billy Padden, trained under Willie Reddish, Sonny Liston, he advised me the exact same thing you said. So you said you spar hard once a week. The other 2 times you tone it down, more technical. You carry an opponent, learn how to carry someone, echoing a lot of things you've said. So again, this is an old school boxing methodology, which I can see is it comes in sort of similar sort of startings, which is interesting. It's interesting. The old school boxing
old school fighters, man, these are the guys, the old school boxers. Those are the guys when they're 70, you still don't want to mess with them.
Yeah.
Right? Those old school, especially UK, you got old pugilists, right? You call them pugilists, right? You don't want to run up, come out of a pub and jump on them, because they have those basic pressed in that DNA of what we're talking about. Good sound basics. And those good sound basics, where they have that jab, that right hand, those body shots, very little else. But if you get hit with it, it's lights out. You know. So sparring I don't know what I would do if I didn't spar, if I didn't have people come after me, old injuries. Now I'm at the point where I train now to keep from turning into a pumpkin.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm
yeah,
45 and I think I'm in the same position.
yeah. So I had to get that in. So
Yeah, because there's nothing for us which sort of ignites our fire, is there, as opposed to compared to sparring. I could go running, but it's boring. Whereas sparring, it awakens the senses, doesn't it? And so
yeah,
it's a great way to continue staying in shape and being active. We enjoy
yeah,
it. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So if you have, what else do you have, man? You gave me the opportunity to say a whole lot of things that have been on my mind. So
Oh,
I
that's
guess
good.
we can finish it up with whatever else you have left.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much done on the questions. But is there anything else you want to add?
What's that? No,
I'm pretty much done on the question. If there's anything else you
no,
want to add, you can feel free to say.
no. Other than let me end it on a positive note. Other than today, other than now is a good time for boxing. It's a really good time for boxing, and that people should enjoy it. Like the 20-year-olds to 30-year-olds, they should really enjoy what they're seeing today. They're seeing great skills, but they're seeing people willing to fight each other, wanting to fight each other. And I've heard people like Shakur Stevenson and others talk about losing one time. I would say to everybody who will be looking at this interview that these fighters are worried about losing their fan base. And if you really appreciate boxing, then you need to appreciate the effort first and appreciate the win later. You see? So I guess that would be the last thing I would say. Of course, anything else would just be stroking my ego, but I want people to know how much I missed boxing from that period between the 90s and about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And to appreciate it now. Sooner or later, somebody's going to lose. Shakur is going to lose. Devin Haney's chances are they're going to lose. But appreciate what you're seeing, the willingness to fight each other. And that's really important.
But funny enough, I sort of stopped watching boxing in the late 90s as well, when you saw that decline. And ironically, it was Floyd Mayweather Jr. that got me back into watching boxing again because of his ring
Yeah.
IQ. But you need that. You need someone like that, don't you? Like the Shakur Stevensons, the Tank Davis, and then that lightweight division, which is all brewing up now. You need that to sort of bring back that spark in boxing, which I grew up, the Tyson era as well, which nothing compares to. When Tyson had a fight, nothing's come close, really, has it? It was an event in itself. Yeah, so yeah, it's just good to see boxing come sort of getting back. But boxing goes the same way.
One other thing for Floyd, I have to say this.
Yeah.
No one will ever be able to take away one thing from him, and people make excuses. The man was champion, the man was good, and the man was said to beat Floyd. So even Floyd distractors, no one will ever be able to take away from him the fact that he beat Canelo Alvarez. So if people really want to look at the legacy of Floyd Mayweather, they should look at the legacy of him beating Canelo Alvarez and how easily he beat him. And the fact of the matter is that Canelo was good. Of course, the Mexican fans want to say, okay, he wasn't as good. No, he was good. He was champion. Yeah. People thought Floyd was biting off more than he could chew.
As the breadman would say, I'd rather be 23 as Alvarez was, as opposed to 36 to what Floyd Mayweather was in the fight. I'd rather be 23. But yeah,
there you go. How old was Floyd?
How old was he? He was 36. I think Alvarez was 23, something like that. Yeah.
Ooh, see.
But do you think? Have you seen a fighter? I think the smartest fighter I've seen is Floyd Mayweather Jr. Do you think has been a smarter fighter than Floyd Mayweather Jr.? Not just I'm saying ring IQ here. So I'm not including his business acumen as well. His in the ring IQ.
Smart. Well, while I'm thinking, let me say he's one of them. So, 'cause I don't want people to think he's gonna say no. I think he's one of them smart. Uh, I think if I try to look any further, it will be out of bias. If I have to look that far and think that long, then the answer is no. So, no. Ali was smart, but he was naturally gifted. I don't want to take anything away from him, but in all fairness, he was so naturally gifted, he didn't have to be smart, even though he was. No, never saw a fighter smarter than Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Ali as well, though, I don't think anyone could have come up with the game plans he had against Foreman, and maybe even St. Liston, the way he sided St. Liston out before the fight. So Ali's definitely up there as well, isn't he?
You know, I have a big ego, and most of it, believe it or not, my ego comes from me being fair. He wasn't. I don't think he was as smart as Floyd. Even Roy Jones, naturally gifted fighters can almost get smart. We got this show called Get Smart with. Yeah, they can kind of stumble into greatness. Be great. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No,
but they don't have to be smart. I think Floyd was the smartest fighter I've ever seen because he didn't throw. You got me with that one, man. You got me with that one, bro. You got me with that one. That's a good one. That's a good one to finish with because I had to think about that. He would, yes, smartest fighter I've ever seen. And because to be that conservative with your punch count, you have to know where you are every moment on a scoreboard. So, yeah, okay, all right, you got me. Yeah, pretty good, my friend. Great, smartest fight I've ever seen.
We'll have people commenting now that you become a Floyd fan.
Yeah, huh?
We'll have people commenting now you become a Floyd fan.
Well, I'm a Floyd fan. I'm a Floyd Mayweather fan. I'm a Floyd Mayweather fan for reasons that his fans are not. I'm a Floyd Mayweather fan because he didn't drink.
Oh.
I'm a Floyd Mayweather fan because he worked harder than everyone else. I'm a Floyd Mayweather fan because with quarters in his pocket, he was always a lighter man other than when he fought junior lightweight and when he fought Marquez. I'm a Floyd Mayweather fan for reasons that your fans don't know about, and that is you have two ways of going if you're out on your feet. You will either look for the exit or you will go forward. Floyd Mayweather was one punch away from being knocked out against Shane Mosley, and he went that way. Now, your fans, his fans, need to appreciate him for that. And if they're going to talk about how great he is, then stop using the adolescent argument of he just didn't lose. The reason why he's great is because he went forward when he could have went backwards. He was unconscious on his feet, not even thinking, and he went that way. So no, I'm a Floyd, greatest junior lightweight of all time.
As Chuck D would say from Public Enemy, fight the power, and Kronk would say, you run to the power. And I suppose Floyd's not too far from Detroit, is he, in Grand Rapids, both in Michigan. Yeah, it's interesting.
I want people to know that, man. You know, that hurts me. That hurts me to the core. You know, it gets me right here that people think I'm not a Floyd Mayweather fan. I'm a fan of Floyd Mayweather's.
Yeah, Mayweather Jr. is one of my favorite fighters, but I don't agree that he's the best of all time.
That's all I was saying.
Yeah, I wouldn't put him top 10, but I wouldn't argue with someone who did say, he's thereabouts. But I have him just outside. The only person I'd have in the top 10 of under 50 fights is Sugar Ray Leonard. Everyone else in their top 10 has to have, Duran had 100 fights, Robinson 200, Henry Armstrong. You know the names, all the ones, the usual suspects, isn't it?
And I'm in all fairness, you look at Henry Armstrong. When I think of top 10 greatest fighters of all time, if people think I'm so hard on Floyd, when people ask me who's the greatest fighters of all time, I don't think of Henry Armstrong. And I know he did a lot. And I mean, I don't think of him because I look at what period of time did a person fight and this. And you could tell me he is in the top 10. And I'll be like, okay, you got me. But when I think all-time great fighters of all time, of course you think of Ali. You think of Pacquiao. You think of certain people that, kind of grab you. So if someone said, do you think Floyd's top 10 greatest fighters of all time? I would answer just like you asked, do I think he's very smart? Do I think he's the smartest fighter? I would have to think of what? 9 fighters or 11 fighters, whatever, that are better. And if it took me too long to think of it, then I would say he's top 10. Because if you have to think about it too long, then now you're thinking you're trying to reach. So I would even say top 10. But his fans want me to say he would have beaten Marvin Hagler. His fans, I've had people say that. People don't know.
Yeah, I've heard it. I've heard it as well. Actually, you're right. I've heard it as well.
Right.
I've heard people say he can beat Marvin Hagler. No chance.
Right.
Too big.
People may not understand this. Our Muslim friends do say, "Wallahi," right? But I heard a man tell. I saw a man. Obviously, I didn't hear him. I read where he said he would have beaten Roy Jones. Now, I like Roy Jones. He's not my favorite fighter, but one of the greatest one-punch snipers.
Yes, sniper is a perfect word.
Time, right? That fits him, right? He's a sniper.
Yeah.
Single shot.
He will set you up. He will set you up. Ring IQ. Set you up for a single shot and take you out.
Right. You say Floyd would beat him? That's what you ask of me? And so, no, I am a fan. I want to make it clear before we smartest fight I've ever seen, greatest junior lightweight I've ever seen. It gets harder as you move up for me to put him the greatest. Greatest 130-pounder I've ever seen. Smartest fighter I've ever seen. Top 10 boxer of all time. Top 10 defense. Nicolino Loche, you got to put in there. Wilfred Benitez, you got to put in there. You got to put in Willie Pep in there. You got to put in Cornell Whitaker. You got to put in James Toney. Beyond those, I don't know of many who were as good. So he fits right in there. Oh, I keep saying the last thing. I took a piece of paper. I took defense, punching power, ring generalship, right? Just for fun. Wife was away visiting her mother. I said, let me try this. I had categories. Do you know the only man who scored B and above in every category? Punching power, speed, ring generalship. The only man that scored B or above, obviously B or A in every category of 6, Floyd Mayweather. Me sitting there, eating my old man snack, my cheesecake and my coffee, right? Not Ali, not Sugar Ray Leonard. No. Floyd Mayweather scored the highest there in every category.
So are you now willing to say Floyd Mayweather Jr. was more talented than James Toney?
Talented. See, that's the problem. When I think of talented, I'm thinking of Shakur. When I think of talented, to me, so people say, well, he's trying to evade something. So to be clear, when I think of talented, I think of looking at someone and saying, you can't teach that.
James Toney, Wilfred Benitez, these guys.
Right.
That was Roy Jones, Ali. Yeah, these guys had talent in abundance. Yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Shakur Stevenson, with Purnell, you're like, oh, ain't no trainer teach that. He was doing that out of the womb. Floyd, I see his father. I see this way of fighting. You see what I mean? Talented, I don't think he's the most talented. But Marvin Hagler's my favorite fighter of all time. Other than Ali, where's his talent? You can see it was just driven.
Well, you always hear, don't you? When you heard about the hardest workers in boxing, people always bring up 2 names, Mayweather Jr. and Marvin Hagler. Good
point. So, and see, they want me to say he's talented, but I already told you what talented is. Talent is when you look at someone and you say, you can't teach that.
Yeah.
You can't teach what Shakur is going to be doing soon. You can't teach what James Toney does. All I want to do is tell you guys, when we finish, look at a highlight of James Toney. I'm saying try. Out of 10 guys who are Floyd Mayweather fans, 1, 2 tops will contact you maybe and say, the guy got a point. The guy's ego is too big for me to tell him actually he had a point, but he's going to tell you he has a point. Watch the highlights. In his prime. Combinations inside. Standing straight up from an L position. People need to understand that he didn't box parallel. He stood straight up, right? And then slipped. He stood straight up because as long as he's straight up, his guns are right here. If he's to the side, he has a jab and he has to turn. He has to square up first before he can throw the cross. So if you really look at him, boom, 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 shifting against Barkley, genius, pure genius. And you have to say that man is talented.
Yeah.
Floyd Mayweather, not so much talented. One of my favorite fighters is Errol Spence Jr.
Yeah, similar.
Not the most talented fighter. He's not the most talented fighter. He's textbook southpaw, blocking southpaw. That's it. Talented? No. So people now they really think I'm nuts. Look at him. He's not the most talented fighter. Not the most talented fighter. Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman, watch him in his prime. Watch Errol Spence. Keith Thurman is far and away not my favorite fighter ever. Probably more talented than Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence Jr. is what you get when you walk into a gym and you taught step 1, step 2.
Yeah.
Step
Great at the fundamentals. Everything's come off that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if people get out of their feelings, then they'll say that guy makes a lot of sense. He makes a lot of sense, you know. But Floyd, I have no issue with Floyd. I just think that fans need to know they're fans. There's a reason why they call it fan, short for fanatic. Fanatics don't think, right? So if a person's a fan, that's fine. But if someone is a trainer, you can like a fighter, but you're not getting paid to be a fan of a fighter. You're getting paid to be a fan of boxing. I train guys, people come in and want to train. You know how many people I've trained to box like Marvin Hagler? Donut. None. Because to box like Marvin Hagler, you need what? A certain mindset. And they don't have that mindset. More of my guys box like from a Philly shell, they box with a high guard. You see? Yeah. But when people ask me, they're unreasonable. That's the problem. They're unreasonable. When people mention Floyd Mayweather, they're unreasonable. And if they were reasonable and they said, Sayf, nobody, you believe it? Nobody's asked me in 12 years. Nobody's asked me, Sayf, just tell me, do you think Floyd Mayweather is one of the greatest fighters? Never asked me that. Never. Every comment I would get, he'll knock out Thomas Hearns, okay? He'll beat Roy Jones, okay? Well, what am I supposed to say? But clearly, top 10 all time, top 10 best defense, ranks higher in every category, including punching power, because if he's hitting you with regularity, you don't last. He wasn't a feather-fisted puncher. In every category, ranked higher than everybody else, all-time smartest fighter. But he belongs at junior featherweight. To wrap this up, he belongs at junior featherweight. When you start moving, you're running a Durant. You're running Aaron Pryor. You're running a Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns. That's dangerous territory. If you love Floyd Mayweather, let him stay comfortably at 130 pounds where he's the greatest of all time. It gets harder and I start to disagree once we start to move up. And that should be sad. That should be good enough for his fans. It should be good enough. It should be. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've really enjoyed that. I think time's gone very quickly because the conversation has been really good fun. So I want to thank you for your time, first of all.
Thank you.
Again, thank you so much for coming on. Really enjoyed listening to you speak. So I want to get this put up onto YouTube pretty sharp hopefully by the end of the day, inshallah. And it's been great to connect with you.
Likewise. We gotta stay in touch, man.
Definitely. I'll be uploading this to YouTube, and I think we can definitely get a lot more short clips of this video as well.
Nice.
Uploaded over the coming weeks, months, however long it takes. plenty of videos up there, a lot of good sound bites, a lot of information, a lot of good advice as well. So yeah, I want to thank you for your time, thank you for your knowledge and your wisdom, and yeah, thank you so much, and yeah,
Thank
keep
you.
in touch.
I appreciate it. Thank you.